Pass
Sorry,
one
I
over,
got
Lisa.
kind
Pass them over.
I doubled. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who have just joined us after closed session, welcome to this hybrid regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. I am Lisa Pelosi, Board President, and I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Jeannie Kerr, Laura Simon, Sean Mora, and Jean Marie Wolfe. I would also, and our student representative, Carolyn Wagner. I would also like to introduce our district staff, Superintendent Ruben Aurelio, Assistant Superintendent Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official Dr. Kay Vang, Director of Educational Services Ms. Veronica Miranda, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board Ms. Erica Madrigal, Executive Assistant to the Assistant Superintendent Ms. Melissa Hansen. I did much better that time. Director of Technology Mr. Derek Machado. Also joining us are additional site administrators in the audience, St. Helena High School Principal, Mr. Benjamin Cinto, RLS Middle School Principal, Mr. Andrew Ryan, and St. Helena Elementary School Principal, Dr. Carmen Emery. We are delighted that you are viewing in person on Zoom or television channel 27 or our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.sthelena.org. In connection with item 4A, the board received information and provided staff with direction. Okay, so now we'll go on to 5B, which is our flag salute. If you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 6A is public comments. And on the screen here momentarily, you'll see just some general guidelines about public comments. We did not receive any written public comments, but is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on items not on the meeting agenda tonight? Nothing received. Okay. Thank you. Okay, item 7A. Well, Carolyn, you're going to start us off by a presentation, please. Thank you.
Wonderful. Good evening. So, rolling from October into November, we have our seasonal events, such as the primary school costume parade that comes around in our quad. That's always a lot of fun, and the kids were very excited this year. So, I'm sad it's my last one, but they were really cute, as they always are. FFA also held their annual movie night, which always has really good attendance, so I was excited to see everybody out there. Also in October, we held Red Ribbon Week, which focused on the awareness and the impact of substance abuse, so that was really important. And then we also had that parent presentation that we talked about last time, which was very informational. So currently in leadership, what I'm focusing on and what my group Equity is focusing on is Student Congress, which is a place for people who aren't in leadership to have their voice. So this year it's a little bit different. We've revised it so that instead of teachers choosing their own student for their fourth period to go, we've asked students to volunteer, students who want to give their voice, who want to be there and participate. We're also making it at lunch. So our first one is supposed to be not this week or next week, but the week after that on Wednesday the 29th. So if any of you would like to join or can be there, that would be great. We're going to review the Healthy Kids Survey and start talking about issues on campus, such as like culture and climate and motivation, especially coming into those winter seasons. Sometimes it can be hard. So it'll be nice to talk about that before we hit winter. And then also, we're hosting our annual Snow Coming Week, so that's kind of like the week before finals, lift everybody's spirits, have a rally, hot cocoa in the quad, some of our special traditions at the high school. Next slide, please. And I didn't include this in last month's, but it's our SRO, and he is leading a student through a challenge. Next slide. So, last meeting, I also spoke of the RLS conference, or the RLS leadership class going to a conference in Sacramento, so I got to talk to them about it and Miss Vicky, and they were super excited. They loved it. They met a ton of kids. They felt super engaged in what was going on. Miss Vicky did have one thing that she said, there was a little bit too much curriculum for the kids, so hopefully next year they'll get to talk more, but it sounds like they'll probably go back. they're planning their own dance for the 8th of December, and it's Winter Wonderland. So it's just nice to see the kids getting involved and have something interesting to do. Dances are always fun and, preps them for high school. And then, of course, winter sports have commenced both here at the high school and at RLS. Next slide, please. And these are some pictures that she took at the conference. You can see them working on, the little people are, who they want to be and aspire to be as leaders. So I found it really interesting, and I was glad they had a good time. At the elementary school, it is just so arty there. There's always art everywhere. I love walking into that campus. I mean, every campus is beautiful, but the elementary school consistently has art up. So they celebrated Dias de los Muertos with the ofrendas and just all the flowers. It was really beautiful. And at all of our school sites, we learn about Dias de los Muertos in all of our Spanish classes. So everything connects all the time, and it was just really great to see that. And the students got to show off their artwork and their ofrendas, so I thought that was sweet. There's pictures up, and it was just really nice. They also had planned spirit days during Red Ribbon Week, and I just thought that that was really cool because you can see the elementary school mirroring what the high school is doing, and it's they're like mini us's. So, they're handing out bookmarks for wearing red, and it was just really cool to see the kids getting involved in their own school spirit. And then something I found really interesting was Girls on the Run. One of the students told me about this. It's a brand new after-school activity open to 4th and 5th graders, and they're just learning about their health, doing exercises, having fun with each other, and building those bonds. So I just didn't even know anything about this, and she was super excited. She ran up to me and told me all about it, and it was great. So I just thought that was really interesting. Next slide, please. And then here you can see the artwork, which I just had to take a picture of. Next slide, please. At the primary school, they're working on their social emotional learning. So every day when they get into the classroom, they go to community circle, which is a time and a space for them to talk about their feelings. And even though we don't do it here at the high school, I think it's really interesting that they do it there, and I think it's important for them to acknowledge the way that they feel at school and with their peers, and it's a good thing for them at that age to learn how important your mental health is and how we should take time to appreciate the way that we feel, whether it's good or bad. And then they're also learning about world geography. In Mrs. White's class, they're learning about how organisms grow and survive, so they have pictures all around the classrooms, and so they'll have different stations. Some kids are drawing, some kids are writing, some kids are taking a test with Miss White, and about how the tortoise's shell is hard because they're in the desert and that keeps them safe, and they were just very interactive in that class. And then I also thought it was really sweet, the TK classes were learning about Veterans Day, because of course we got that day off, and they were making miniature veterans. Next slide, please. So here you can see Halloween artwork and those ecosystems.
Thank you. Trustees, questions, comments for Carolyn? No? Yeah. Thanks as always.
I think the one thing I was going to say, did you invite us on the 29th Wednesday for the high school 4th period?
Yes.
I just want to tell you we're at a conference.
Oh, right.
And just so you don't feel like none of us wanted to be there, we would be there.
No worries.
But I think we're away that day, just so you know, we would be there if we were in town.
Thank
We'll
you.
take a rain check for the next time, Student Congress.
I'll
'cause-
definitely report on it.
Okay, thank you. We'd appreciate that. Okay, next presentation is the high priority deferred maintenance projects and site assessments for November. Dr. Vang, please.
Thank you, President Pelosi. So at the October board meeting, John Delana with Great Stone West presented facilities needs and observation for 2 of our sites. That was the primary school and the middle school. And I've asked John to come back today, and he will provide us with an update on our 2 remaining sites. That would be the elementary school and the high school.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely, thank you. So starting at the elementary school, we started at the building exteriors and the grounds. Next slide, please. Identified some issues with the path of travel, whether it be from tree roots, tearing up concrete. You can see that the retaining walls are starting to buckle and concrete cracking all over. There's presence of this kind of activity amongst the site. You can see out in front of the school additional sidewalk cracking. There's been some pavers that have been put in over the years that are also starting to heave in certain areas. A lot of this is from the tree roots that are in the planar areas that didn't have any tree barriers around them. They used to not install tree barriers, so concrete would crack because of that. Here you'll see some asphalt that's cracking. It's sort of present amongst that whole interior courtyard of the elementary school. More asphalt cracking. It's important to note that it appears that there's some issues with the compaction under the asphalt, which is creating, there's movement, which is and water that's creating this movement for the asphalt and cracks all over. Roofing, you can see some of these the roofs look old. The cracking and the asphalt material is starting to wear off. You can see some standing water in there as well. I think there needs to be some drainage means that's added to the roofs. Next slide. You can see in the picture, actually both pictures, you can see some standing water. That standing water adds weight to the buildings, so there may need to be some, besides just drainage, maybe some pitch add to get the water into a drain to get off the building. HVAC, there's 30 rooftop units that are serving the campus. 27 of them were manufactured in 1999. Generally, use of life is around 25 years. So we're approaching the end of lifespan for those. Single pane windows up in the clear story windows. You can see in each of those photos, this is at the 1950s building. One of the items identified to us from the site is no trash enclosure, so all of the trash cans are kind of lined up. So there's a need for some trash enclosures. Moving on to the interior, looks like there's some new door hardware was installed. Some painting needs to take place to cover some of the old holes. Again, you'll see in the photo the single pane windows. You'll also see some old lighting, non-LED, and it looks like those fixtures are close to being original, at least on the right-hand side. You'll also see signs of some ceiling leaks. A little bit harder to tell in here. You can see the old lights on the left-hand side, and there's been some damage based on some of the ceiling leaks in there. And then a little hard to tell on the right, but there is some ceiling staining due to the roof leaks. This is over the roofs that we looked at that are standing water, that have the cracked roofing, is directly over this area. Casework. No, casework does not provide for ADA. Normally for ADA, you would have an open bottom so that a wheelchair person could wheel right up under there. Some more roof leaks. Looks like there's been some patching that's been done, but I believe that the leaks are still active. More ceiling leaks and older lights that you can see. And then some of the miscellaneous finishes you can see in the photo on the right, as well as the left is one of the bathrooms. You could see some of the finishes on the wall peeling off due to probably some water infiltration. And then you can also see in the photo in the center, there's been some leaks, some damaged ceiling tiles, monitored, installed directly over the whiteboard, so with cords hanging. And then there's also been some speakers or items that have been relocated, so there's some painting and upgrading that needs to be done at some of those classrooms. And now onto the high school. Your track and field are getting close to needing repairs. They are typically about 10 years of life, and so we're approaching the end of the useful life of the existing field and track. More path of travel issues, just like what we saw at the elementary school, heaving from some of the trees. You can see in both of those photos. Some damaged roof tiles you can see on the left side, both at the corner, both on the upper and the lower side. And then also in the photo on the right, almost in line with that column, some damaged mansard ceiling tiles. I'm sorry, roof tiles. The windows in this photo, the photo in the middle is identified that it's room 302, but plexiglass windows. And then in both of these photos, we're seeing dry rot on the building on the fascia. Non-ADA water fountains. Many of the schools are going to bottle fillers, so obviously those are not present. And then on the right-hand side, more path of travel issues. More ceiling tile leaks in each of these photos, as well as poor ventilation in the weight room. And then more non-ADA cabinets where the sinks are. It appears additional storage is needed. The photo in the middle is some plastic storage, I believe, that's used for some of the music equipment. More storage is needed. The photo on the left, the sink, the reason why we have that photo is there's no water pressure in that room, and so that was turned on full bore. You can see some outdated finishes on the left-hand side. Some of the acoustical ceiling tiles and walls are damaged, need painting and upgrading. And then on the right-hand side, the flooring. Those are 9x9 tiles. Asbestos is present in those tiles. And so those need to be replaced. And that is it. Any questions?
We're not going to invite you back next month. No,
I won't take
I'm
it
just
personally.
playing. I know, John, and I appreciate very much the list that you put together. Let me just see if there's any public comment on. Oh no, there's this. This is just a presentation. My apologies. Okay, trustees, questions, comments. I have a question about the plexiglass windows. Is that code? I mean, was that code at one point to put those in?
No, I imagine they were damaged at one time and then just replaced with plexiglass with the intent of being replaced with glass, but just hasn't happened.
Okay.
And then my question is about the turf. The football one, we replaced that was a warranty. I don't think it was 10 years ago. I think it was more recent than that. So when you're talking about the turf, are you talking about the baseball fields or the softball, football?
The football field, as well as the track. Usually every 10 years, those need to be resurfaced. I'm not aware of when the warranty work took place to replace the turf field, but we could find that out.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
would be great. Thank you.
Just is the single pane, is the window replacement for like energy efficiency as well as safety when you talked about the single pane windows?
Energy efficiency, safety, and then leaking or condensating. That'll also lead to some of the drips that'll come down the wall and all of that. The other thing is where those windows were on the roof. Typically, they require 6 to 8 inches, but between the bottom of the window to the roof surface. Otherwise, it's not a warrantyable condition, so most likely that would need to be built up a little bit and then new windows installed.
And on the travel path, since we've got a lot of buckling going on, there's also crumbling curbs on Adams. They're closer to the corner. And so there's no shared responsibility with the city on that, right? That's all St. Helena Unified property?
We did meet with the city maybe 18 months ago. I'm
Okay.
trying to rack my brain. 12 to 18 months ago, and I believe the school district's responsibility goes to the face of gutter pan. Normally, it would be the back of curb,
Okay.
but I guess being an older city, it was kind of written into your lot line being further out.
Okay. Meaning the end of the street edge of the curb.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I have a question really quickly about the ceiling leaks and the stains.
Yes.
What's next step for mold, for checking for mold and things of,
So yeah, we could get a hygienist in to do some air samples, both outside and inside, and then they determine the difference to identify if there is mold present inside. They also have what they call a wipe test. So they bring these wipes, wipe it down, send it to the lab, and see what comes back.
okay, thank you.
And I thought we had done work to the weight room as well.
We have, yes.
That maybe it was also just replacing ceiling tiles in there, because we had the condensation issue in there as well.
And I remember there was like ventilation, there was
Yeah.
ventilation issues at that point as well, so I'm not sure what work was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there should be some additional investigation for that. Maybe check the air balancing and to see what the makeup air is, what we're getting in there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we can help as well with our, just going back to notes and figuring out that out as well.
Right,
So
right.
we can help maybe from a historical perspective as well. So.
Okay.
And I'm sure Mr. Cinto could as well, so he might be our walking historian.
And we've got some additional investigations to do with school being out next week. We're going to try and get into some of the classrooms a little bit deeper. Everything was pretty quick, kind of after school,
Okay.
to try and get it done.
Okay. And the 9x9 tiles so did you test it for asbestos, or is there just those
Those
type of tiles?
those type of tiles are, the mastic on them are always, they're always hot, asbestos containing.
Got it.
Yeah.
How old were those, do you think?
They're probably all of 40, 50 years old, I'm guessing.
Was that all?
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Trustees or Carolyn, any questions?
Well, so I'm not sure who to ask on this one. Is that, so what's next? What's the next,
Thank you.
what's our
Our
next steps?
facilities presentation our study session is, my understanding is that these presentations will be combined. Dr. Vang has a presentation for us, and at that point, it's creating, I would imagine is that out of that study session is
Yeah, of
prioritizing
course.
and funding. Would that be accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So December 6th, we will have a full presentation to provide you with more in-depth information and possible next steps.
And then will you bring to us a ranking of sorts from these two presentations?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Excuse me. Item 8A is under facilities is the approval to award a contract for the St. Helena Elementary School Room 10 overhang repair project. Dr. Vang, please.
Thank you. We have another project. It is the Room 10 overhang. It's my understanding that back in 2022, was it 20? Let me double check it. Back in October of 2022, there were some ground shaking caused by earthquake activity. There was a temporary structure that was put in place to mitigate the issue. However, we need to permanently address this, so I am bringing forth a contract to repair the overhang. Great Stone West actually looked at 3 different bids, and our lowest bid goes to EF Brett for $31,326. And John is also here if there are questions regarding this overhang project.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay, thank you. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I was actually curious if this is one of the buildings or roofs that had a leak problem that we saw earlier, because I wasn't.
It is, but it's on the opposite side of the overhang. The teacher had heard a crack at one point. Thought that it was an interior issue. The finishes were stripped, and we brought in a structural engineer to look at it. As they were looking at it, they identified that the crack, or at least the issue, was on the outside of the overhang.
Okay. And so I guess then the question is, you can fix this independently and do the roof and not cause a rework?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
That was one of my questions, so thank you. I just from a safety perspective, is this area off limits for staff and students right now, or are people going underneath it? I'm just curious if it's
It was temporary shored up, so it's safe.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
And the intent would be to perform this work over the Christmas break.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Questions or? Okay. Excuse me. Is there a motion to approve the contract for the St. Helena Elementary School Room 10 overhang repair project as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote? Yes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, 9A is contracts over $25,000 for November of 2023. Dr. Vang, please.
Thank you. I have 4 items for contracts over $25,000. One of them is to replace copiers at 2 of our sites. Another contract is to move forward with Clark Pest Control for our pest management. And the third one is it's actually an update. We received our transit van. It was delivered to us, I believe, last week. It was a purchase that the board approved when Andy was here. However, because we didn't get the van when we had asked for the van, a year later, it's costing us about about $4,000 more. So I'm bringing this back as an information piece under consent because it is over $25,000. Just so that the board is aware of this, the increase in costs. And then the last item is for the overhang repair.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
So this is our second transit van, is that correct? We have 2 of them?
Yes,
Okay,
I
that's what I
believe so.
thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Anyone?
You know, I'm just, because no, I thought that we had 1 too, and I saw 2 today, and that's why I'm asking about that. We've got 2 of them.
We have one that the high school has for sports, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sento, but there's one that sports that high school uses for sports. This one was approved previously for both home-to-school transportation and for after-school extracurricular activities.
Okay. Okay, right, thank you.
Dr. Vang, on the pest control contract, do you know, do they come out in between, if we have a episode, if you will, that comes up in between services, do they come out and tackle that? And if so, is that additional cost or is that built into their service?
That would be an additional cost. The contract is for twice a month
right.
at each of the sites.
Okay, okay, great. Thank you. Trustees, anything else? Carolyn, anything? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Magical will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 10 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion and action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment or on Zoom on this agenda item? No, and there's no written public comments we've received. Trustees, any items that you need to pull from the consent agenda? No. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Magical will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, item 11 is communications, and we'll start with board members' report. And Trustee Kerr, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to read. I did prepare something this evening just because I wanted to keep on track because I know our meetings might go long tonight. So,
Okay.
yeah, just hope we can get out of here by 7 o'clock. No, just teasing. Wouldn't that be nice? I had the I had the pleasure and opportunity to visit classrooms and take a walking tour with Principal Ryan yesterday afternoon, and then come back to watch the 8th grade volleyball team beat Calistoga. It was really fun to watch the girls play and see the team rally for the win. It was a great game, and I'm sorry that you missed it, Mr. Ryan, because the ending was really good. It was really good. But thank you for being there. Thank you very much. The minute I walked on campus, I was greeted with a hello and a smile, and the kindness and appreciation of me being there was felt throughout the entire visit. We began with Miss Calparis's art class, where both of the pottery wheels were spinning and students molding their clay into their desired shapes. There was music playing in the background, and there was an all-around comfortable and relaxing environment. Informally, we discussed how any type of art stimulates the brain, improves fine motor skills, boosts confidence and self-esteem, and most importantly, gives the students the opportunity to just be themselves, to just be kids. And thank you for sharing your art from the elementary school, because it's amazing what the arts do for our children. I am very much a proponent of art, and as much as we can do with our students. We then spent a bit of time in Mr. Mills' 6th grade history class, where they were sharing topics about Egypt individually and then within a group. To prep for this sharing, Mr. Mills asked the students to first write a paragraph based on their notes, and then tell how 5 or more subjects are related to each other. Mr. Harrington's multimedia class was next. The students were more than happy to explain what they were doing. The students were learning how to compose their own music tracks for their own videos, which then leads to the students composing songs that match scenes in a movie. Additionally, the Devil's Digest is the weekly video magazine produced by the 7th graders. I reviewed some of the video pieces that they had been produced, which were very impressive. But more than that, it's the skills that they learn: attention to detail, problem solving, and meeting the tight deadlines. One of the things that I thought was very interesting that Mr. Harrington shared with me is the annual 8th graders' trips to Google. They have heard from Google reps. These are the students. Heard from the Google reps that certainly tech skills are a necessary component to working at Google, but they actually look for prospective employees to have the life skills listed on the photo. It's the one on the right.
Okay.
We took a walk through the nature trail, and I commend our teachers, our students, and our maintenance and grounds team for really making that space shine. It looks so inviting, and it is my personal hope that we can utilize that space more throughout the day. We made a stop into Miss Gonzalez Arredondo 7th grade choir class, and wow, the students sounded fantastic. They were rehearsing for the holiday choir concert, which is coming up in December. Our last stop was a presentation by Officer Ken Stevenson of the Napa Special Investigations Bureau. All of our 8th grade classes throughout the years have had the opportunity to learn about the court system, diversion programs, and how the juvenile justice system works. His message to the student was very bold in how it works, but mostly his message was to be kind to your fellow classmates because you never know what is going on in other students' lives, and they may be having a difficult time navigating challenging experiences in their own home. Our last stop was a track and field. It continues to move forward, which is always nice to see. And I do want to say thank you to Mr. Ryan for all of your time. I have to say that my meeting with you, my meeting and visiting with you yesterday and attending the volleyball game was probably the highlight of my week. So you can tell what kind of a week I was having. So thank you very much. I'm very appreciative of all the work that you're beginning to do there, and I look forward to my next visit to Robert Louis Stevenson Middle School. So thank you very much. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Kerr.
Okay, absolutely.
Any questions for Jeannie? No? All right. You had a jam-packed visit.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll now move on to 11B, Superintendent's Report. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Good evening, everyone. And tonight's report will be reflecting on the last month of school, and then a recap of our November 4th board study session on student data, and then foreshadowing some upcoming dates and events. Next slide. So October to November, like every month around here, very jam-packed and full. Obviously, highlights are whenever we can see our students perform and on stage and in front of families. And so She Kills Monsters was the play the high school put on, was fantastic. Hopefully you all had a chance to see it. It was really amazing. Always kudos to our staff for an amazing job with those productions. And of course, I know they're already rehearsing the musical for the spring, which is Grease. So that should be fun and exciting. Harvest Festival, I was able to witness it in full effect, including the Paw Parade. I know some of you were in that parade, which was just great, feeling what St. Helena has to offer to our community. It's just a fantastic event. I really enjoyed the fact that they had the sort of separate area, which was really intended for kids. And in that, I saw Preschool for All, I saw our parent groups, Give Big, they were staged there as well. And it was just a really lovely event, very well attended. I know we had a number of our clubs out, FFA, band, music, we're all out there representing the school district. So it was fantastic. We had a band concert. I was thoroughly impressed just by the range of our instructor and how she gets these middle school kids who have potentially never picked up an instrument, and they're playing, and it's October. And where they end up by the time they get to high school, it's pretty fantastic to see. Of course, we had the Halloween parades. Those are always exciting and fun. We in Vintage Hall, we always like to dress up as well and join in the festivities. And then we timed Halloween and parent-teacher conferences on the same week. So that was interesting process. I believe those were well attended by our families. And I was able to personally deliver the gift that was purchased by many of the members of the staff, and handwritten cards to the wife of Brian Clark, Teresa Clark. I delivered that to her last week. We delivered a Japanese maple tree. So moving on, we had the Saturday session on November 4th. Thank you all for attending that, principals as well as staff. And we dove in very deeply into our academic performance and data. We took a different approach to looking at data this year. We had Steve Reese and Michael O'Neill facilitate. They are outside facilitators who really looked at longitudinal data, providing a historical perspective for St. Helena. One of my major takeaways is that if you attend our school district at a minimum of 5 years, you're gaining at least 6 years worth of education in those 5 years. So pay for 5, get 1 free. That's the way I see it. And that's fantastic. That's the added value that our staff brings to, and the resources and everything else that we have here. Like any data, when you look, you're always going to find highlights and areas that you want to focus on. And so for us, some of those areas are looking at English to middle school transition. Elementary to middle school transition, especially mathematics performance, something we've brought up many times, looking at the mathematics. There is definitely still a gap between our white and Hispanic students, looking at the college going metrics, A to G completion rates. And then just next steps for us is to start to focus in on the local measures that we use, our data that we use throughout the year to really target specifically our students that need extra support. So that data we looked at was based mostly on CASP data, which is, we know, a summative assessment that happens at the end of a school year. So it's not necessarily in-year actionable data, and that's what we use our local measures for. And that's where we're moving next. That slide's same thing in Spanish. And then lastly, no school next week. Our students and families get the week off to really reconnect with your family and rest and be ready for the quick grind, especially high schoolers, right? You come right back, you have a couple weeks and finals. And then we do it again. Right after the break, we are promoting our school safety parent meeting. It's a town hall style meeting in the Parent Performing Arts Center. And this is a partner presentation with the school district and the St. Helena Police Department. And it's really focused on our actions around lockdowns and student safety. We did a similar presentation last year via Zoom. We're going to try to do it in person this year. We will have translation interpretation for that session. Our governance team and staff will be headed to San Francisco the week of November 29th to December 2nd. That is the annual education conference of California School Boards Association. We will be joined by Carolyn as well, so that should be exciting. She'll get to be around other student trustees. We also have a lot of work as a board, right? We have 2 study sessions in December, back-to-back weeks. One will be around the deferred maintenance, what we saw the earlier presentation, and the second one will be a closed session around negotiations on December 13th. We also have our regular meeting on the 16th. And I believe that is it. 14th? Sorry, 14th. Not 16th, 14th.
Thank you very much. Trustees, do you have any questions? Okay, thank
Can
you,
I
Mr.
make a
Aurelio.
comment? I was just going to say, I don't think you had it up there, but I went to the elementary school, did a musical presentation, and Mr. Binder, he is such a creative soul. I mean, they did these light sticks and and it was just, I don't know. I've been to so many things at the primary or the elementary that he's been involved in music, and the kids are so engaged. I think he's a treasure. It's good to have him for the kids.
I believe it was Out of This World, wasn't it?
Yes,
Out of This World is correct. That was the theme.
And Dr. Emery and him do a very good tag team in
Yeah.
doing their
No, it was
presentation.
great, actually, yeah, very much so. Thank you for that plug. That's a worthy plug. Okay, so now we'll move on to the superintendent subcommittee reports. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Yes, and so it was also a busy time frame. You can see all the different committees that have met during this time. So we'll move on to the first one on the list, which is the Student Discipline Committee. As always, the QR code will take anyone to this slide deck for that session. That evening, we had Lisa Pelosi and Sean Mora in attendance. We reviewed group notes from the previous meeting. We reviewed fall data, discipline data in 2 groups, and that data was specifically the RLS and the high school data. And then we were identifying the challenges that we were seeing within the data. The previous meeting, we had looked at historical discipline data. So this was a snapshot looking at from the start of the year to that time frame relative to the previous year, same time frame, really trying to compare apples to apples. I will turn it over to either of you if there's anything you want to add. If not,
No,
perfect.
I think
We will move on.
I think that's okay.
The next committee that met was the Student Equity and Belonging Committee. Jeannie Kerr and Sean Mora were in attendance. Similar format, we did review the previous meeting feedback and notes. That evening, we reviewed the California Healthy Kids Survey data. and it was reporting out of that data. I know those are brief highlights there. Slide deck does include all the information and agenda for people to review. Jeannie Kerr or Shamora, anything you wish to add regarding that evening?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
I just
very
have a
much.
question though for people who may be watching, and if they do the slide deck, and does it will it list like next steps for people to know, like what comes out of that meeting, what was accomplished, and what's the next step? Does it have it on that?
It won't necessarily list that. If there's the feedback, I do include the feedback that was provided during the meeting in the slide deck.
Okay. And
But
so-
it's something I
and-
can
and-
look at adding for future.
And are those QR codes pushed out to staff?
No, no, not necessarily, but
Okay. Yeah, it
made
might just be
available.
something so that, I mean, I don't know however the communication may come from the district office out to school sites, but that staff has an opportunity to see what's going on in committees. So might just be something worth pursuing. Okay, carrying on. My apologies.
no problem.
Okay.
The next committee meeting was the Monrovia group meeting. President Pelosi, you were there with me virtually on Zoom. We did a recap regarding the previous topic, which was declining enrollment, affordable workforce housing. There was a brief discussion regarding the impact just around the Middle East crisis, and sort of gauging from the different community members if that was showing up in their areas. And then there were updates provided by the different groups that were in attendance. That's the City of St. Helena, county supervisors, the school district, and the Culinary Institute of America. Anything you want to add to that?
I think the one thing that was interesting that I learned, that the CIA, their enrollment is steady, but then their enrollment is also projected, to quote Mr. Busby, was to fall off a cliff, actually. Their enrollment.
2026, I believe you said.
Yeah, but one of their struggles is student housing. So, they guarantee housing for the first year, and then in the second year, they have like a 15-week externship, right? They go somewhere and they do their service somewhere else, part of the program. So they're able to somewhat kind of move people around, but they did make a comment that they had to decline a lot of applications because they don't have housing. So what we also learned in that meeting was that PUC has housing. So Ann Cottrell, our supervisor, she was talking about connecting those two, the CIA and PUC, because that could be maybe a win-win for everybody, and there may be a way to find more student housing for those programs. So I just thought that was kind of good community awareness to have, because we certainly, we don't want to see their decline.
And that PUC has also had declining enrollment from about 2,000 students to under 900 now, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so it's happening. So that's my only addition to add to that.
Thank you. The LCAP steering committee met on November 7th. Jeannie Kerr and Laura Simon were in attendance. I'm going to turn that over to either you, Chris, if you want to give an update, or Jeannie, or Laura, if you want to recap.
Mr. Heller, go ahead, please.
Okay. Oh, this isn't the calendar committee. It's the steering committee.
Yeah, you have the next one too.
Okay. So what we did during the LCAP steering committee is our focus this year is really analyzing our 4 goals during each of the 4 sessions that we have. In October, we took a look at goal 3 and divided it up into little subcommittees, and they provided feedback, which is part of our stakeholder community partner engagement to receive feedback on the goal and its progress. And is the goal still a viable goal, something that we want to continue with in future years, or is it something that we want to revise or potentially eliminate and transition from? So we reviewed some of the information from that 3rd goal, and then we did the same kind of exercise with goal number 4. So staff is collecting all of that, and that will be in a future LCAP presentation somewhere in March or April to kind of consolidate all that information and share out with the board and the community.
Thank you.
Oh, you know, it's kind of off topic, not really off topic, but regardless. So I did see today that there's thoughts that the LCAP might be changing again. So yeah.
Every year it seems like something is added or taken away.
Some additional type of quantifiers as far as our students and stuff.
Of course, it's additional.
So more.
There's never reductions, right? Yeah, but,
exactly.
it does undergo revisions every year, and I believe the State Board of Education approves the template in December. And it gets sent out to a staff to review.
And some of the, when the groups shared out, some of the thoughts that were shared out was continue to decrease the stigma of mental health support, thoughts around anti-bullying focused on lower levels. There was a small discussion on merging goals 2 and 4, and questions about how the goals are measured.
Great. Next one is the calendar committee, which occurred yesterday.
Yep. So the calendar committee met yesterday, and I believe we have a consensus 3-year cycle of calendars that will take us through 26-27 school year. So the next step in that process is the calendars get forwarded to SHTA for membership to ratify, and if all goes well, we will bring those calendars back in December and have those approved, and we will send those out to our neighboring districts in the Napa Valley, as well as our partner schools in the Coastal Mountain Conference, so they can try to align their holiday breaks with ours as much as possible, especially in spring, when it seems to be a conflict with athletic contests when one school is on spring break and others aren't. So we are the forefront in the calendars in our area, so that's why we try to send it out so other people know what we're thinking.
Right. I think there's a lot of the nice thing is it worked hard to find consistency year after year, so appreciate that as well.
Yep.
I'm sure that's beneficial for staff and families. So
The last item is I will be putting together a new ad hoc field trip committee. The target date to begin that will be in January. So when we do the reorganization and any committee assignments, we will need a trustee assigned to the ad hoc committee. The goal of this committee will be to review our field trip documentation, make sure everything's compliant and procedures are being followed. And we're really interested in establishing a baseline of district-sponsored annual trips that are budgeted by the district, just so we know exactly what trips we commit to yearly and include those in the budgets. And then, just defining those things that are essential for specific grade levels. And
I'm sure this has occurred. I mean, but my recommendation is to make sure the invitations go out to the parent groups, the foundation people, give big, it's really important to have all those same people at that table so the information is correct across all school sites. And I'm speaking from experience, so I just would encourage that there's a nice makeup at the table.
And I would also suggest that maybe with the parent groups, they have an alternate as well. Maybe ask them for an alternate so that there is, in case one is not able to attend, someone else is, just to kind of keep them in the loop the entire time.
Great. And lastly, just the calendar of upcoming meetings. You can see those there. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions or anything?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 11D is the St. Helena Teachers Association report to the board. Mr. Blasingame.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Evan Blasingame, U.S. history teacher at the high school and vice president of the SHTA. Mark Lulsdorf is coaching the JV soccer team, and he just texted me. They won their second victory of the year. They're now 2-0. They just won 10-1.
Yay.
Wow. Yeah, the first team was so scared they didn't even show up.
Oh, wow.
I was just about to ask.
So I'm really here just to introduce myself. one thing assigned to say, Mark has been making rounds to all the sites, and one common refrain is a concern about school enrollment and the need, rather urgent need at this point, to for us to figure out a way to maintain and possibly expand that enrollment in order to continue, you know, the quantity and quality of programs we have here at St. Helena High School. That's really it. Thank you.
Whoops. Item E is the CSEA report to the board. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, President Pelosi, school board members, Superintendent Aurelio, Assistant Superintendent, and Mr. Heller. I thank you so much for your courtesy, and I would be bringing you greetings on behalf of each and every CSEA member. And I would like to introduce our treasurer who is here tonight, Lisa Montelli. Thank you for coming, Lisa. I wish more of our board was here tonight, but unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. This will be the last time I address you as president of CSEA board members. I thank you for your courtesy and your commitment to make a difference in the lives of everyday employees. I really just want to kind of give you just a report of where I'm at and what I have learned in my term as president. Everything we learn begins with the work of other people. My goal this year was to help people become more concerned about their work and the people they work with and the people they work for. When I think about most of our challenges that we had, and of course we did have some challenges throughout this year, in our workplace, in our organizations, in our homes, in our schools, I believe that most of it is caused because we've forgotten to give consent to the day-to-day attention to those simple things that have the most biggest impact on us. That is making our lives better and for our coworkers as well as for ourselves. We allow ourselves to be chasing some complex situations. Sometimes we're distracted by chasing those. Oftentimes we're embracing what could be just simple. Why? Why do we do that? Why do you serve? Why did I serve as president? Maybe we think of the complex is more interesting. Maybe because we think it's we're just too busy and forgot what was most important, that of taking care of our students. What really we want is to be an effective leader for all of our community and for all of our students to see. I loved when you spoke of Google's honor of words of collaboration. I work at a school site that has a character trait every month. This character trait this month was collaboration. And I'm sorry, Mrs. Mead, if I don't have the sign language correct, but she gave it to me. It was this: peacefully working together. And if we speak those words, we should live those words. Oh, let's see here. I asked my board to do 3 things this year, and for some of this, I felt miserable at. I asked them to model the behaviors that they would expect of others. I asked them to connect with each other, support one another. I asked them to involve as many people as they possibly could. I'd like to thank my fellow union members who had the courage to select me as president, and I'd also like to accept my executive board, as well as administrators, Mr. Aurelio, Mr. Heller, who has been a great sounding advice for me, and Dr. Vang. So with the lessons I've learned this year, I learned how to think. I learned how to speak, act, dream, listen, lead, and love. When one door closes, another door opens. But we often look so long and so much regretful upon that closed door that we don't see the one which is open for us. And that quote was from Alexander Graham Bell. If you go in my custodial closet, I have a little bulletin board up there, and it has a picture of kids and artwork and a calendar and a few other things. But it has a quote on here that's kept me going, especially in the Thanksgiving time. And it says this: be thankful for what you have, and you'll have more. Concentrate on what you don't have, and you'll never have enough. God bless you. I thank you so much for this time. Is there any questions you have on behalf of CSA that I can answer for you?
Trustees. Thank you for such thoughtful reflection.
You're
You
welcome.
always provide us nice reflection, and we really appreciate it. Thank you for serving as president as well. We hope you'll come visit us at board meetings just for kicks.
I'll do that for sure. As long as you have candy, I'll be fine.
Okay. Oh, well, apparently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Trustees, items 11F, G, H, and I, as always, are written reports from our principals that contain great nuggets of information and updates for us, as always. I wanted to just, personally, I was happy to read about that Care Solace, and maybe we're going to learn a little bit more about that tonight from Mr. Cinto, but that was really exciting. And what else do I want to call out here? Let me think here. I was curious and to know about the adjustments that were made at RLS to the new that it improved the receipt and read outcome, because if you've got some kind of magic formula there, that might be worth sharing with other personnel, because I would notice that in the report that it said that it had improved that rate. So kudos on that, and whatever that magic formula is, maybe you can share it. And also, like, a shout out as well to all the parent volunteers that you all acknowledge on your reports, because as we know, parent involvement, engagement is critical, and I know that everybody at the school sites is grateful for that. So thank you. Thank you for acknowledging them in your communications. Trustees, anything else?
I just want to thank Principal Ryan for the community newsletters this year. Being a board member, I'm also an RLS parent, and I know that the kids at that age group are starting to become more independent, and they want us to break away a bit. But the newsletters are a great way to communicate so much important information about the academics and the culture. So I really thank you for those this year. Yeah, they're awesome.
On that note, Mr. Aurelio, on those links on the agenda, so when I click on them, this is what it takes me to a screen where I have to download the Parent Square app. Like, it doesn't take me to the newsletter specifically. So can we work on that at another time so that I went onto the website to see them at the school site, but it'd be great if they could be accessible in case other people are clicking them on.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say, because that was mine as well.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Okay. All right, we'll move on to 12A, which is the presentation on the 23-24 Food Services Program. Dr. Vang, please.
Thank you. So today, our food service director, Ms. Angela Baxter, and I will be co-presenting, sharing an update on our food service program for this year, including one-time funds. At the beginning of the school year, we had kicked off the year with a guest speaker who spoke about professional learning communities. Our food service team has embraced PLC's, professional learning communities, along with the 4 guiding questions. So Angela is actually putting up our 4 guiding questions that we use to guide our monthly food service team meetings. Angela has done a great job leading our team this year, making changes based on feedback from students and staff, and we will continue to visit sites and make necessary changes based on feedback. So we're excited to provide you with an update. All right. There we go. And there are 4 guiding questions.
Is there a clicker? Okay. Hi, I'm Angela Baxter. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Director of Food Service. I'm here to do our food services report for the fall. First of all, I wanted to introduce, actually, can you go back? My amazing staff who each and every day work so hard to put out food for the students. And they're also there to, be a very happy presence for the kids every day. Customer service is number 1 for us. We also strive to work really well as a team. So I wanted to introduce them again, because some of you guys don't know them. We have 2 new employees this year. From left to right, there's me, and then Veronica Bernal, who works at the high school, Veronica Rodriguez, who works at the elementary, Maricela Pimentel-Leon, that works at the RLS, Rocio Rojas, we call her Rocio, but her name is Maria, at the RLS, Teresa Sepulveda at the high school, Martha Martinez at the primary school, Hema Adame at the primary, and then Letty Bajosa, last but not least, our production lead who works at the elementary but oversees all the schools. Tonight in my presentation, I'm going to do a little program overview. I'm going to talk about menu development and how so far this year we've involved staff, students, in nutrition education. I'm going to talk about one-time food service funds that were given. They were given last year, but most of the funds need to be used by the end of 2025. And then successes and opportunities for this year, since it's the beginning of the year still. So program overview. We continue with California Universal Meals. So that means that each child every day receives a breakfast and a lunch for free. We're also in the second year of Provision 2, which basically is our reimbursement program. And instead of meal applications this year, we're collecting household data income collection forms, which affect our funding purposes, and we're allowed to collect those, or we can collect those every year through Provision 2. And also for the board policy 5030, we definitely strive to align with our board policy. We ensure access to food is in accordance with federal and state guidelines. For each age group, there's a meal pattern, and we're making sure we follow that. We continue to provide nutrition education to students to encourage lifelong positive eating habits. And we have and will participate in many community and school catering events. In the fall so far, and you'll see a picture up here of us at Lyman Park, we did a student staff barbecue at the RLS, and then we also did the Fiesta de Octubre in Lyman Park. Both were so much fun because it's kind of a team building experience for all of us. And then we also just love interacting with the community and showing them our program, but also just being a part of the community, because a lot of times my staff are in the kitchen and with the students only, and to include the whole community is positive. Oh yeah, going back. Oh no, that's it for that one. So the next slide. Menu development. So that's always my main focus every year in food services is menu development. There's certain meals the kids love and we stick to those, but we're always looking for improvement. Every day is a new day, and my staff is really happy to be at work every day and working hard to put the food there for students, but we also want the students to be happy. So we're always looking for ways to improve. So the first thing that we've done this year is we've really tried to involve the students more. Kay and I have done a lot of walking around in the cafeterias, talking to the students and getting feedback. And through that feedback, we've altered the menus a little bit to show that we're listening to them, but also to hopefully have better participation. And so there's many things that we've changed, little things, but a few of those are we've added a 6 to 12 breakfast menu back. We used to have it a long time ago, but through COVID, we kind of went to a TK to 12 menu. We've included more breakfast burritos and less bagels. We've changed pizza now to just twice a month and not every Friday. And we've added a homemade queso for the first time on the nachos. Which we got a lot of positive feedback because we made it from scratch, and it reminded them more of nachos, even though it wasn't the Velveeta style. It was really flavorful. So, and then staff involvement. We've done a lot of involving our staff too in the menu changes. I've always had my staff involved in the menu changes, but it's more been on an individual basis. And this year, it's been more of a meeting focus. So as you see on the walls, we've been doing some collaborative work. And, you know, we started with the first question over here, what do we want and need to accomplish? And then we moved to how can we improve? And so if you want to walk around later and look at some of the things up there, you're welcome to. But it's been really positive, and every meeting that we've had, we add to it. And the staff feel appreciated, but also we're all contributing as a team to the menus as well. It's teamwork. That's the focus. So some of the things that have come out of that is offering less variety of fruit to the high school, but more of things that they like. Because a lot of times kids, as they get older, they don't really want fruit, but it is a meal pattern requirement. So we've really changed that more at the high school of serving fruit that they want, because we'd rather have them consume it than have a variety that's just going to the shared table or donated to the pantry. We also have served kids more of what they like, even though it might not be one of our homemade items. For example, I've changed to chicken burger twice a month and less deli subs. Some kids love the deli subs, but they'd rather see some of the more popular items twice a month rather than just once a month. And then yogurt and granola at the primary school is served now instead of the breakfast crisp with yogurt, because the younger kids just want more of a simple breakfast rather than a more complicated homemade crisp that we make in the kitchen. And then nutrition education, we continue to do nutrition education of the students. I have my monthly fruit and vegetable education, which is called now the Harvest Spotlight, because they got rid of the Harvest of the Month, via the Parent Square on all my menus. I have a Healthy Eating for Families newsletter on my website, which parents know they have access to, with different nutrition topics about child nutrition and tips for families. We participate in several events throughout the year that educate the students. One big one that we do every year, which I love because I feel like it's nutrition education of the entire school all in one day, but it's super effective, is the RLS Wellness Fair. And that's going to be again in the spring this year. Usually we do it in January. And in the past, we've done topics like snacking, macronutrients, healthy immune system, and false advertising on food packaging. I think it's a great age to hit before they go to high school, because there is so much lifelong learning in nutrition. And I feel like they're sponges at that age, and they really need to understand that the small little choices they make now will affect them later in adulthood. Also in February, this is going to be new this year, I'm going to do nutrition education with the elementary school students with the physical education teacher, Mrs. McCornack, about heart health, and that's supported by the American Heart Association. We will continue to do taste tests throughout the year with new menu items. Some we will test ahead of time, and others we just kind of throw out there into the menu, and if it's unliked, then we don't serve it again. Or disliked. So we're gonna do that as we always do, and we will really only continue items that we see that are really popular. And then also I wanted to add on here too that the RLS science classes continue their winter garden, and they did plant this year, and they're gonna have broccoli, lettuce, carrots, radishes, and fava beans coming out of the winter garden. And then we have one-time food service funds that, like I mentioned before, were given to us, and we have for some of them the end of this year, but most of them the end of 2025. And I'm going to let Kay talk a little bit about this to begin, and then I'm going to talk about the equipment that we've decided that we are going to purchase, but haven't purchased yet.
So as Angela mentioned, these are one-time funds. We have a plan to expend these funds by the deadline, because we do not want to lose these funding. They're critical for our food service program. These funds will allow us to provide and purchase new equipment for all of our kitchens, and also to provide food service training, which is mandatory for our food service staff. The supply chain assistance, one-time dollars are being spent on milk for the students. Angela will talk a little bit more about how we're spending our school food best practices as she's transitioned to lots of organic fruits and vegetables from local vendors here. So these are one-time funds, and we have been working closely together to come up with a plan to ensure that these funds are expensed before the deadline.
Okay. So we'll be using, for our equipment, we're going to be purchasing various equipment. Most of the equipment that we're going to purchase is replacing equipment that's basically at the end of its life. So we're getting ahead of our needs. But the equipment is definitely ready to replace. So I'm just going to mention a few things. We also are going to get a cargo van, so we need a van. Our van is definitely at the end of its life. We're going to spend a big chunk on that. We're going to get a reach-in refrigerator, a couple of reach-in refrigerators at the primary school. Our roll-in refrigerator at the primary school is dead, so we definitely need another one of those. We're going to get a steamer convection at both the high school and the primary school, a milk refrigerator at the high school, a 48-inch range at the high school, refrigerated worktop that'll go completely all the way under our computer station. Right now we have milk refrigerators there, but we need more. And let's see, we're also looking into quotes for new hand sinks in the high school kitchen, and also a new warmer. And then we also have little lists of equipment needs that we have in the kitchens at all the sites. So that's a start.
And in order to make room for the new equipment, next month I will bring to you a surplus list of items that we will be removing from our kitchens to make room for the new equipment. These will be items that are either obsolete, they're no longer working, we're not using them, they've been in the kitchen for a while, so they need to be replaced. So I'll bring that to the board next month, a surplus list, and then also contracts, some contracts over 25 and some under.
And then, like she said, for the school food service best practices, I have been purchasing some foods or from different vendors that are local, and we have been purchasing food from Nana Maize, which has given us really amazing organic apples, and Feed Cooperative out of Sonoma, which has been giving us like lemon cucumbers, English cucumbers, tomatoes, beautiful cherry tomatoes, organic pears, and also mushrooms. So, and then we've also been purchasing our meats, but actually purchasing more for our hamburgers. We purchased the Mindful Meats organic beef patties. And then also for staff training, there's some funds for that too. We basically have some staff training funds, and we're going to use that for training with our Lunch Assist program and vertical articulation trainings, and also the extra hours given for those trainings to employees. I think that's it. So to end here, I'm going to continue with food services to work on different opportunities mentioned, but my successes and opportunities for this school year are definitely menu development, collaborating with students and staff to improve participation. And here I just wanted to add a little bit. We have an increase in participation already through October. So I compared May, which is a huge month of last school year, and we had already been through the whole school year, to October this year, and we have an increase in participation, especially at the high school. The high school participation has gone way up. So that's exciting because that's the main goal, one of the main goals. So that's amazing. We're at, and I'll just tell you what it is. So for October, breakfast is at, for the whole school district, the average is 497 meals. And for lunch, the average is 477 meals. It's a little, yeah. So that's good compared to last year. And then we're going back to success and opportunities. Yeah, and I'm going to continue the special events, and I'm hoping that some of the schools that I had done it before, like the primary school as well, will do special events in the spring, and that other schools will add on to some special events because we'd love to cater and be a part of those. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my staff come to work really early, and they work very hard the entire time. They don't stop except for their breaks that they're given. So they're very appreciated.
Yeah. Kudos to them. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks.
Trustees, questions, comments?
I do. I have a few. You can see food really got me excited here. And first of all, I'd just like to compliment you because this is very different than the lunch lady when I was in high school and they were grumpy and there was always things in foil, some kind of surprise. So my one question is, how do you deal with dietary restrictions, whether it's gluten-free or vegetarian or anything? Are you able to accommodate special food needs?
Yes, we are. So I work closely with Kate Scudero, the nurse. And if someone does have a food allergy, she takes note of it first, and then they fill out a form by their doctor that indicates their need, and we provide that. So I'm a registered dietitian and very familiar with special diets, and my staff is trained too in special diets as well. So we keep a close watch. Luckily, we're a small school district, so we don't have a lot, but we do have more than we have in the past, and we've done pretty well so far with what we've been given.
That's great, because I know like nut allergies, sometimes they're, scary things.
Yeah, so we don't serve nuts, even though they're very healthy. We don't serve nuts in the school district. We do have one Honey Nut Cheerios, but we refrain from serving it most of the time.
Wow. Great. Oh, that's great. And then my others were just comments. I think it's great that you're going with local purveyors. I think that's such a good community thing to do. And my other question is food prepared at each site? I mean, I'm used to, like, years ago they used to bring things over, but now I'm not. I should know that. Like,
yeah, so
now, how does it work?
all the kitchens are full kitchens. The only site that we don't make the food at is the RLS. We do it out of the elementary school and transport. The other schools do their own mostly. The primary sometimes, because of scheduling, will bring some of the side meals over, but for the most part, everyone does their own.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Doing a great job.
Thanks.
Really amazing.
Why doesn't the RLS make their own meals?
It's really not needed because we have the space and the equipment that we need at the elementary, and it's so close that they get there ahead of time and actually plate all the food. Mm-hmm. They bring it over in bulk and they plate all the food right before the kids receive it. So the food is really fresh and presented in the same way. They do it. They're amazing. They leave and they do it all in 20 minutes.
Wow.
So it leaves the elementary school plated up and served within 20 minutes.
And you appreciate this process? It's working?
Yeah,
okay?
It works great. And I'm amazed by how they can do it.
Wow.
And it's a hard thing to do, but they do it.
I had a question about portion size, thinking about the elementary school versus the high school students. How is it portion size different depending?
So it's based on the meal. There's certain calorie requirements. And so when when it's figured out, it's based on calorie requirements and then also the meal partner requirements, because we have milk, grain, meat alternate, fruit and veggie. And so the high school age just receives more than like the primary or the elementary. We group really for a lot of the meals, the RLS with the high school. Mm-hmm. So they're getting close to the same portions, but for some of the meals, the high school has to have more. Mm-hmm. So.
And are kids allowed to ask for seconds?
They can have seconds, but they have to pay for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
When is the next nacho day? That's my pressing question.
Next month, maybe in the second week.
Okay,
Yeah.
Erica, could you please note the calendar because now you've got me on that like a little nacho kick. But I think the other thing I was going to ask, first of all, thank you. This is great. And just in case you don't know, very positive things are said about the food services department at St. Helena Unified. So that's kudos to you and your staff. I was curious with all the new equipment that comes in. Is that in-house installation? Does it come with installation? How does
It depends on the equipment. If our maintenance team can actually install these equipment themselves, we will do that. If we cannot be done in-house, then the installation will be part of the quotes that Angela is working with our maintenance team on obtaining.
Okay, great.
Yeah, most of the items I think are going to be things that we can install ourselves.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Trustees?
Just a quick question. And just the crystal ball that you have, why do you think the high school is having higher meal count now than in the past?
I think it has to do with just the students coming in. So I think, our participation went up and it's continued to stay up. So all these years have passed and these students are still eating the food. So that's good. That's the only thing I can think of.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's a culture that's created, and
Yeah.
we have less of a stigma now, and it's really nice to see
Yeah.
Yeah.
because the food is for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
And
Thank you.
Angela, I mean, would you say your biggest challenge of the department is maintaining participation?
yeah, it is. And that's always a goal is to keep the participation and then also increase it as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Right.
Trustees?
But kids love consistency, so you can't
Right.
just change things all of a sudden.
Sounds like you guys are, you're doing a great job of pleasing a lot of different palates out there. So that's no easy task either. So appreciate that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
time. Thank you.
And you guys are welcome to check out.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that. Absolutely. How are you on time? Are you okay? Trustee Wagner? Okay. All right. Then we're going to kind of keep moving along if we could. 12B is the approval of the revision of board bylaws. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Yes, thank you. So you have 10 board policies or board bylaws to review with changes that are noted in the guide here. For the most part, they're formatting changes and a few minor adjustments, and the notation shows the recommendation from staff to adopt as presented, or if there's options, which options to select. And attached, you have the markup version that shows the changes for each of the board bylaws.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? No. No, I just want to say thank you for. Yes, this is a Miss Magical. Thank you for always paying attention to our bylaws and policies and making sure we're on track about that. So thank you very much. Is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody else? Okay. Yes.
Okay, looking at 9100. Change 2 consecutive years to 3 consecutive years to align with past practice. Can I get a little history of the past practice? So we're switching from 2 to 3 years for.
Yes, that's correct. So in
Yeah.
our previous board bylaws, it listed that a trustee cannot hold one position, such as vice president, president, or clerk, for more than 2 consecutive years. However, it's been past practice that trustees would stay in that role for up to 3 years to ensure consistency. And so we're asking that we change that 2-year requirement or that maximum to a 3-year maximum, And this is really important that that change occurs prior to our organizational meeting, should a trustee would like to stay, if they would like to stay in the position for a third consecutive year.
Okay, so they have a choice to only stay in that position
Absolutely.
for 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a maximum
Okay,
of consecutive years.
okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that idea?
I'm okay with it because I've been on this board where some presidents have served back-to-back terms. Sometimes out of just the makeup of the board, meaning that there have been newer people on and it didn't make sense. I mean, I could, maybe Jeannie was president and then somebody else, and then there were 3 new board members. You're not going to necessarily ask a new board member to step in the role of presidency. So it does provide consistency as you're onboarding new
Okay.
trustees.
Okay.
I'm in favor of it. And
Okay.
I would imagine that if there was a situation where somebody was sitting in a role and couldn't serve that 3rd year or was choosing not to, that's something that we would make a motion and bring to the dais or change the bylaw. Because it's a maximum.
It's a maximum.
Right.
It's a maximum, so you could choose to only serve for 1 year.
Yes.
And in any one position, and then maybe not go to a different position or not hold a position at all.
Okay.
And I would say that it also gives us options, gives us a little bit more options by being adding 1 more year to the maximum amount for
Okay.
each of the positions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the revision to the board bylaws as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Magical will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner.
Aye.
Trustee Wolf.
Aye.
Trustee Mora.
Aye.
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. 12C is the written report on the St. Helena Unified Residency Audit for 23-24. And this is a written report, trustees. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, questions about this presentation?
No questions, no.
No? Okay, I think I've got everybody shaking no, so we'll just thank you for providing this information for us. 12D is the written report on the District of Choice program for 23-24. And, pardon me, this is also a written report. Trustees, any questions, comments, or well, actually, excuse me, is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this? Yes. Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, you're okay. That's fine. I'd rather have you make sure that you're feeling comfortable before we move on. So, okay. Thank you. Okay, then we're going to move on to item 12E, which is the district enrollment process. With an update, please, Mr. Aurelio.
Great. So we're going to go on to the next slide. So this evening, this is a discussion item, and I will be asking the board sort of just for some direction regarding process for enrollment in the future years, starting with the 25-26 school year. And essentially what we're asking is two questions. The first question, and we actually heard our SHTA vice president mention this in his public comment, a concern about our declining enrollment in our school district, and should we be looking at a way to potentially either maintain or increase our enrollment in our district. So that's the essential first question, and we will look at some data, historical data, as well as staff feedback, a survey that was conducted with staff regarding our enrollment. And then the second question is more process-based. I will share what our current enrollment process is, currently how we handle that, and then look at some potential options if we want to shift away from district of choice, which is our main process now. Let's go to the next slide, please. So beginning with just some data, historical data around our district, you can see that pre-2000s, St. Helena Unified had over 1,600 students enrolled. It started to dip in the 2000s, where it declined to about 1,500 to 1,300 by the time it hit 2010s. In the teens, it dropped to the 1,200 range, and then here from 2016 on below, you can see we have gradually dipped. We recovered a bit in 2018, 19, 2020. Of course, that was then when COVID hit, and there was a concerted effort at that point to shift practice around caps with district choice. There was a shift to lower some class sizes to provide more focus to students coming back from the pandemic. That was a concerted effort made by the board at that time. And in the last few years, you can see we've dipped close to, we're really on the cusp there of dropping below 1,100 now in our current year. This is our current enrollment makeup. You can see by grade level from TK all the way to grade 12. Just for reference, grades 6 through 12, the divisor day that was used on average class size was 7 for a 7-period day. So if you divide by 6, it'd be obviously a little higher than that. We know that in the middle and high school, there is a range in class sizes based on the content of those classes. Some core classes will have more kids versus electives having far less. And it just depends on the course. You can see the enrollment by school as well, currently, with the primary school sitting below 200 students at this point. District-wide, our adult-to-student ratio is 13:1. Next slide. Yeah. Yeah, district-wide. That's a district-wide ratio. So this is data related to the staff feedback. We did receive 74 responses. This is just the job classification of those who responded. You can see the majority of the responses did come from the certificated ranks, but we did get management as well as classified employees. The staff was asked, would you like to see an increase in student enrollment? Just a standard question here. And you can see the majority, 74.3% said yes, and another 17.6% couched it as a maybe. I think that's a depends type question. Depends on what the factors are. The next question that was asked on the survey is, do you believe adding more students has a negative or positive effect on our students? And it was a range of answers there, but the majority here, 47 and 27%, are positive or more positive than negative. And then we have, gave the folks the opportunity to say don't know and would rather not speculate, because this is definitely speculation that we're making here. In addition to those types of questions, the staff was asked to provide just narrative feedback. They were asked about how would increasing enrollment impact staff. The following themes emerged, and so there was a lot of narrative data. I know that the contents were shared with the board, but the themes that surfaced were class dynamics and student interactions. By adding students, there's a possibility you can have different types of interactions, more students to dialogue with. It supports the programs, especially the extracurriculars, especially by the time you get to middle and high school. Some of the programs are really student dependent. You need bodies to field teams or plays or any of these programs that we have. There are some class size concerns that can surface. We do have small class sizes in certain grade levels, and then some grade levels are more impacted than others. There is always a concern about job security and stability of programming. As we continue to get smaller, we have to make some real tough choices. At what point is it too small to have a program, to have a class? The support services and resources, not every kid gets every kind of service and resource, but some kids do need added resources and services. It might be intervention, it could be special education services. And so we have to factor in, if we do grow or increase classes, we don't always know what those things are until they're here. Impact on the workload. Perfect example might be caseloads for special education, for example. There was a theme about adding diversity and enrichment by adding students. mentioned the concerns about special education, behavioral needs that could surface as we add more students. Adding more students can actually contribute to a positive learning environment, more friends to get along with, especially if you're in a small class where you might have not too many friends to interact with. Do we have infrastructure and resource limitations potentially? Do we have all the classroom spaces? I don't think we're looking at adding in that capacity classrooms or additional teachers, but if we were to continue to grow per se, we would have to look at those things and impact on specific roles. And of course, any of this really should be focused on future planning and data-driven decisions. The next question asked of the staff was, how would increasing enrollment really impact the students? Now really focused on the students. And you can see some of the similar themes that surfaced, everything from the bringing more diversity and perspectives, social opportunities and friendships, that, there could be both positive or negative impacts on learning environments depending on the size of class and the structure of that class. But they felt that adding kids obviously brings some program sustainability long term. Class size management could be a challenge. The unknown whenever we add students, and that's any given year. There could be behavioral learning challenges that come with students. The impact on, but the positive impact that could be seen for extracurricular activities, education and cultural enrichment opportunities, as well as teacher-student ratios and individual attention might be decreased. That was a theme as well. We have a limited number of resources. When we add students, we're just dividing by more students. So we have to be mindful of that our resources, even though we are a well-resourced district, they're not unlimited. And then giving kids opportunity for world preparation, being around more students who might be different than them will be helpful. And then there's potential for overload at different levels. The last survey question really was an open-ended question, like what key considerations should we, the board, the superintendent, have when we consider potentially adding more students? And some, like I said, some of the same themes appear that were consistent in some of the other questions as well. And I'm not going to go through every single one, but you can do see the notes there. So I want to just pause and give an opportunity for you all to sort of discuss the data around our enrollment. And really the first question is around, should we be attempting to grow or maintain our enrollment? We're not alone in declining enrollment. We know that's a state issue. We know it's a county issue. We've heard even tonight talk of the CIA and the PUC. It's impacting everyone. There's just seems to be less students in this valley as a whole.
Thank you. Do we have to also, if we're pausing for discussion, do I need to ask for public comment on this part?
So that I can go through the whole thing and do discussion at the end if you want.
I think we probably should do it that way. I think we should go through the entire presentation.
We can do it that way.
And then I'll ask for public comment.
Perfect. So I'll then move us into the second phase, which is to explain what our current enrollment practice is and potential shifts down the line if we want to look at those. So currently, there's multiple ways to enroll in our school district. One way is through the Allen Bill, and the Allen Bill is a legislation that allows for employees of the district. This is one component of the Allen Bill, the one that we do honor in our district at this point. Employees who work for a minimum of 15 hours a week are able to register their students as resident students of our district. And we do have a number of our employees who have entered our district this way. We do encourage our employees to do the DOC process first and foremost when they can, and we did convert quite a few this past cycle from Allenville to DOC. One of the written reports, we only currently have 4 students on Allenville. There is the interdistrict agreement. It is a very limited agreement that we have, and it's only for those very specific actionable bulleted items there when we can accept an IDA, an interdistrict permit, for a student who has been a victim of sexual assault or an act of bullying. That has to be well documented, and they can apply to our district. We do allow students who have been attending our district to remain in our schools if they were juniors for their senior year, even though they might have moved away. And then we allow a student potentially to stay within our district till the remainder of the year if they move out of the district during the school year, so that to have that continuity. And lastly is that there was a resolution back in 2018-19. There was some students who were part of an MOU that were essentially grandfathered in under the IDA. We have a few of those left as part of that. The main option we have for families outside of our attendance area is to apply for district of choice. And that is a board policy 5117. And there's an application that's open in the fall for the following school year. There's a window of time. Anyone residing outside our attendance area could apply for district of choice. It's not limited to anybody in particular, but there is prioritization that you can see there. The first priority given to anyone who has a sibling already attending our school district. The second priority is for free and reduced lunch families and students. That's to make sure we're being equitable in that access. And the third is for military personnel. And then everyone else is a fourth priority or a lump together. The history around DOC in our district, DOC is a process that the state allowed for back in 2011. The district adopted the process. Now, DOC, when it first originated, was a little more lucrative as far as funding. It allowed for 75% of the local control funding formula allocated to students from revenue limit districts. That number has really been downgraded. Now we only receive 25% of that LCFF dollar amount. And for us, that's only districts that are revenue limit. Within the Napa Valley, there's only one school district that's a revenue limit district. That's Napa Valley Unified School District. We do receive roughly 65 students from that district that do generate that 25% funding. Last year, for example, that was $166,000. We estimate that number will be $180,000 this year for our DOC students. The majority of DOC students that come to us from basic aid schools, Calistoga, Hell Mountain, the only additional funding we get for those students are categorically triggered. So if they're eligible for Title I, Title II, special education dollars, lottery funds. This is just our current timeline for the application process. That application window is currently open, so people can apply for next school year. We are going to be doing DOC one more year unless we make a change for the following year. And that window closes November 30th, so it's coming up soon. We will then be looking at, as a board, deciding the caps for next year. And then we run a public lottery with the applicants that we received. So things to consider with district of choice. I listed some pros and cons related to that process. The school board does determine cap level by grade levels. It is obviously a prediction that is made pretty early on before the cycle, so we tend to make that decision in December. We can go into January if needed to make that decision. But we are deciding caps based on our current enrollment and sort of thinking through as we roll those students up into the next grade level where we want our class sizes and grade levels to be, and we make that determination pretty early on. Factors that impact that, we don't know any new enrollment that we might get until much later in the year. Now for families, the pro, if you're a district of choice, is once you're in, you're in. It's a one-time process that allows you to then continue on and to be treated basically as a resident student. As I mentioned, there is some limited funding attached to some DOC students. And then, of course, the district of residence can't deny access to DOC transfers. There are just some rare circumstances. If we take too many students, a certain percentage of their ADA, they can start to deny. But we haven't ever triggered that denial. The cons related to this, it is a limited application window for adding students. It's not rolling admissions. They can't apply throughout the year. The student's ability to attend is not contingent on any maintenance of attendance, behavior, academic progress. We don't have the ability to revoke a district of choice permit or process. The only way a student could be removed from our district is through the expulsion if they're district of choice. And of course, we don't receive additional funding from districts, basic aid districts. The inter-district permit process, if we wish to consider that, the IDA can be a contingent process, meaning we can set up attendance, behavior, and academic progress as a monitoring process where they must maintain a certain level of attendance, certain level of academic progress. That would be work if the board is wanting to go down this path. We would create a matrix and really spell out exactly what that is, so there's no question about what triggers a revocation. Possibility to expand the window of enrollment because it's not limited to just a singular time of year. You could get a rolling admissions. You could add students at different times of the year. We can still cap what our enrollment would look like by grade levels. That is something we would want to determine, max class sizes, optimal class sizes, just to be consistent on where we are in our growth. The cons with IDAs, they are applications that families would have to repeat, and that can range for a maximum of 5 years before they have to go back to their home district to get approval. Most districts do that at the transition years. So for us, typically, I don't know if we would do it between primary and elementary, but we definitely would want to do it between elementary and middle and high. The districts of residence can deny access to enrollment. They don't have to approve interdistrict permits. We would be giving up that 25% that we would receive for DOC students from LCFF funded districts. And then the interdistrict permit can be revoked at any time by either district. I did want to include this is separate from the IDA process, but if there is an option potentially to add to the Allen bill scenario, there is a part 2 scenario which we currently don't honor, and that allows for employees working within the boundaries of our school district. So if you're employed within St. Helena, you would then be able to enroll your student like a resident under Allen bill. There are some pros with that, and obviously there are some cons. I do want to highlight as a con the second bullet there, because that would be a very new process for us, and it could create additional staff work to have to verify things like employment status. So it's contingent on being employed. We're also in an area where there's temporary and seasonal employment for families who might be working, so that it could get very messy fast. And yeah, so at this point, we've heard there's some optimism about the benefits of increasing enrollment, particularly for terms of diversity, social opportunities, program stability, sustainability. We do have to consider managing class sizes and ensuring that our resource allocation is not spread too thinly. And then just requesting some direction from the board. We know that this isn't impacting next year's cycle, and it would be really for the 2025-26 enrollment cycle if we make any shifts or changes. And so I'll open it up for your discussion.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Okay. Trustees, I'm sure you don't have any questions or comments on this, so but please feel free to someone to start the conversation.
Okay, I'll ask one quick question. First, a question. Just to clarify, so with DOC, I understand our window is going to close November 30th. Let's say we have 5 spots open in 5th grade. Nobody applies. And I know we said it's not rolling, but if someone showed up in February and said, can I fill out a form to enroll my child? You still have openings. That's it, November 30th.
That's a hard deadline
Okay.
for the application window.
Got it. I'll come back with my other comments.
Go first. Go ahead, please do.
Okay, so for the families that you mentioned that you recommended move from Allenville to DOC, why did you make that recommendation?
So most of those they're all, well, Allenville, they're all staff-related
They're all
students.
staff-related,
Yeah,
okay.
because that's the only part of Allenville that we honor, which is the employed within our school
Correct,
district.
correct.
One, to capture some of the funding that we're leaving on the table if they're coming from revenue limit districts. So if they live in Napa and they're under Allenville, we're not getting that 25% funding.
Okay, so that was the main reason. Got it.
Yep.
And then, how many students does DOC funding with the 180,000 that we received?
So looking
Quickly do
at
the
the,
math.
I know. Well, the report, what the written report shows, if my memory serves me well, there was 65 from Napa Valley Unified, but there were a couple other school districts that we do get revenue from. Nope, is that this one? Yep, the other one.
It's 4 from Windsor.
Yeah. It's
Vallejo?
only the revenue limit, not the basic aid districts. So yes, Vallejo, which one? Fairfield. Right. Yeah, they're up on there.
I mean, I know, I guess my question is that, 180,000 can look like a large price tag, but when we break
Per
it down
pupil.
per pupil, how many students is that paying for?
I have to do the mental math.
Well,
I'm gonna give you
actually,
30
it's-
seconds. No, I mean,
No, and
or
it's interesting 'cause
approximately.
I asked that question on a one-on-one meeting as well.
Okay.
Because, theoretically, let's say the conversation is like St. Helena spends $32,000 per pupil spending, right? But realistically, if we've got 3 kids in a class or 13, some of those costs are fixed no matter what. So 32 isn't necessarily a true figure, right? Because there's going to be fixed costs in there just to turn the lights on and have a teacher at the front of the classroom,
Right.
all that. So what is the true cost per head, right? Is that,
Yeah.
and then when you know that and you take the $180,000 and can have that, then you realize that's how many students, that's the way my brain was interpreting it.
That makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
That once we know that figure, then we know how many that's really covering and educating DOC students.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense, but I pose the question because that is a number that I wish we had a better sense of specifically per child when we look at all of the things that we need to educate that child from TK to 12.
So
yeah.
roughly 84 of these students.
Yeah.
If you divide the 180,000, it's just over 2,100.
Yeah, I kind of remember that from
Yeah.
previous
It's
conversations.
always around
that-
2,000
That when
something.
you break it down, we were getting somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 per head for a DOC student, just depending on what our numbers were one year to the next, right? If our DOC numbers are lower, then we maybe are closer to the 2,500, but if they're higher, then we're down closer to the 2,000. So I think and I'm not assuming this is what your conversation might be going to, but then it's like, can our budget withstand taking even that out, right?
Right.
And still being able to provide the amount of services and resources that we need for all of our students.
Yes, thank you. And I ask that question because our school community expects us to be fiscally responsible. So that's why I
Right.
asked that question, to
Right.
be, just be more
very impor-
responsible.
It's an
Yeah.
important question.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I agree. I think I've asked that many times at this dais over the years, and it's something we kind of really need, and that's probably what maybe some of the direction that's going to come out of this tonight is to really understand the financial impact to our budget and particularly as it affects our students. I mean, we don't know who anybody comes to us on any kind of enrollment.
Correct.
What kind of needs they may have that are special ed or IEP, whatever the case
Right.
may be. Nobody has that knowledge ahead of time. So, to that point, we will never know. It would be helpful to really understand what we're looking at, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And I think that's a common mindset. I don't think that what you're asking is important, is what
Okay.
I'll say. You want to continue on that? Okay. Jeannie, you want to add anything onto that?
I do, because I did a little, I was calculating it as well. And so I would like to go to so what I'm referring to right now is, and I'm using this as a generalization, and I'm not using this as, that we're paying for these students right now, because we're not. These are the students that are MOU students from our other districts that we're receiving money for, and that's for our special education students. And so with them, it was broken down in the report where the 8 students that we have that are in the SHOP program, those districts are funding us $44,558. And then the SDC ones are $40,000. So I just took those, made a calculation. So say that we through, as we added enrollment, not knowing what students are coming our way, say that we did get 8 students that had special education needs. So we're already looking at 128, about $900,000, just right there. Just
That comes to us.
that won't come to us if
That
they're
won't
coming.
come
That
to
won't
us.
come to us as an
Okay.
IDA.
Okay.
We're getting it just because we have the MOU with them. But
Okay.
but they come to us not knowing who we're getting. So my thought with that is, because we don't know what students are coming our way when at any point, for a district of choice, since there's no money coming to us, we should have some type of like a set aside or something for knowing that just in case students coming to us, we have those extra funding to know that we can pay for those students.
Interesting.
So
set
specifically,
aside
like a
this
special
every year.
education set aside is, I mean, is that
Can
where
you
you?
do that? I
Yeah.
don't think you could do that.
But can we somehow budget for the unexpected of what our enrollment might look like?
Not necessarily, unless we know what services the student may need. Those
Right.
services vary, and when I close the books, that's when I would do a contribution from general fund into special ed, depending on the actual costs. So until we know what the actual costs are, it's,
Well, we really don't know the actual cost until the end of every year, but we can still do an estimate. We could even say, hey, so some of our students that come into us may not, our students that we get now, we'll say that our students that we have now, it's $29,000, we'll say $30,000. But maybe a student coming to us, they might be additional funding, not knowing, we don't know. Can't we say, okay, well, let's estimate we have 5 students that might be coming to us. Let's put 5 times $40,000 into a set aside, $200,000 for students that we need to take care of. And just so that we have enough money in our budget to be able to do that. Knowing that.
I mean, in theory, I think that's great. My sense is that that would be how do you, I mean, and I can't answer that. So it's like, how does that get put in a budget? Like,
Right.
what's the line item? I mean, I like the idea, Gina. I know exactly where you're coming from. I just don't know how the CBO builds that into the budget, and what's the line item called?
right, because when we know what services a student needs, we take that contract and we encumber funds in a PO. I would be a little nervous about encumbering funds just as a set aside, because when I do my interim reportings, I just am a little nervous that.
No, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair. It was just a thought, and it's fair. It's something to consider, but I understand what you're saying.
I hear what you're saying.
We have
yes.
a larger conversation than
And,
so
and I
I'm
think
willing to move
it is
on.
very much dependent on the types of services. The shops are program is some of our more severe students, for example, who need more specialized programming. There's such a range of IEPs that we get. Some are very low level, speech and language, resource, which we have staffing for those things. We're not necessarily adding staffing. When we keep those programs in-house, it gets to be really expensive when we have to go out of the district for things like MPS and those.
Well, that's
Yeah,
what I was thinking
right.
as well, because I know that we've had transportation bills coming our way for
Right.
$70,000 to $75,000 a year as well. So anyway, I'm not gonna belabor this. And I'm gonna say this, and then I'll pass it on. One of the things that I use as kind of a guide for a guiding light for myself as far as enrollment in the sense is, and this is something that our board has in the past when we started with DOC. One of our concerns that we had was it was a matter about being a good neighbor and not taking too many students away from our neighboring districts. Because we know, as we're seeing in here, our neighboring districts, Calistoga, Howell Mountain, and Pope Valley, are seeing a lot of their students coming to us. And so then to me, what I think in my mind is like, well, what's happening to their programs then? What's happening to their population?
Mm-hmm.
And is it fair that we're taking their students in order to take care of what we need here, to have a really vibrant environment for our St. Helena Unified, but what about Calistoga Unified and Howell Mountain Unified?
Right.
How does that look? And have we talked to them about what we're doing? So I'm going to leave it at that, with that.
Well, I think too, on the flip side of that, Jeannie, might be if you live in Calistoga and you don't want your child in the district and you don't get into St. Helena, would you find a private option? I mean, we don't know how many are we really pulling. Would people look at other options? Obviously, we don't know that.
Just this year, we have 46 from Calistoga.
Right.
That's 2 full classes,
Yeah.
2.5 classes.
I just mean, if we limited and said we're only taking 10 and we get 20, would those 10 people stay in the Calistoga district, or would those
Right.
parents go, okay, then we're going to go to Santa Rosa and
Right.
go to such and such? But I think it's hard because it's like dollars and cents. But on the other hand, I look at watching kids go through high school. I think it's more important to maintain at that middle school and high school because, like we said, production shows, sports. I hate to see those things go away because I remember when our kids were in theater, it's, somebody's doing swim team and doing theater and, there's just, I hate to see those things have to get reduced because we just don't have students to field them all. And I know
absolutely agree with
it's
that.
a
I
tough
absolutely agree with that.
tough balancing act.
Carolyn, do you have anything to add to the conversation?
I think I lean more towards increasing our enrollment just because over the last couple years, I've just been in smaller class sizes, and that might just because of honors and AP or, not everybody gets to calculus, but it's nice to be in a room full of people and to have a campus that wears red and to have students try out for volleyball and be in theater. But I do also really value my one-on-one time with my teachers, and I know my peers do too. And being able to go in and access and talk to my teacher for 10 minutes straight without being interrupted is invaluable to us. So I would say to meet at some sort of middle ground, but I would also say to increase enrollment.
Great. Thank you so much.
You know what? Go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's, for me, I think the one thing people are very confused with when I talk to people about about declining enrollment is regardless of whether it's DOC or IDA, we're going to have caps for enrollment. That's IDA and DOC are just how we bring them in.
Mhm.
So we're always going to have caps. So I guess I worry when I see the comments about the board should please increase number of students that come in, let more in. Well, we only had met the cap sizes for TK, 4th, 5th, and 7th last year. And then ultimately everyone except for 4 TKs was accepted in after a board vote to increase the caps. So we have space for everyone. At the high school, not all the spaces were filled. So I think it's really for me, I'm thinking about how do we draw them in while be a good neighbor, right? But that is a really interesting part I hadn't thought about. But, or adding TK, if that's going to be a continual area where we don't have where we do have a cap issue. I think, so I guess I don't know enough. I don't have any experience with, can an IDA be removed without cause? Like, I don't, probably not. So we saw a lot of feedback about behavior and wanting to have the ability to not maintain students if it was a lot of disruption. I guess I just don't know what that means, DOC versus IDA. That kind of scares me to think, I don't know. We always talk about there are kids, so I don't know what that means in terms of being a pro. I assume we still have some sort of a lottery with an IDA if we are at a cap, if we've got 10 students apply and 5 spots. I don't know, so I guess it's hard for me I'm assuming we do something like that so that there's still not, I think I had heard that
Yeah,
there's
there would be
favoritism.
you'd have to do a lottery. There'd be
Right.
priorities as
Yeah,
well.
so those, it could just be rolling if there's space, and if
Right.
not, like, I guess these are the procedural things I'm thinking of. And I think that was it. You guys have had experience, sorry, President Pelosi and Kerr, I know we moved away from it to have lottery, I think, and funding. Are there
That's correct.
other things that we should take into consideration? Because I don't think, maybe we'd get more enrollment mid-year if we were on IDA. Like, are there any other things I should be thinking about?
I think what concerns me about IDA is, one thing that stands out that really concerns me is that the districts of residence can deny access to enroll our students. And if they're having declining enrollment, they are not going to want to let go of those students, especially students in districts like Napa that receive more funding from the state than we do as a basic aid district. So that's a huge red flag for me. I haven't decided but when I saw that really, really scared me.
So I think a couple of general conversational comments here is, ultimately, nobody in this room has control over who wants to come to our schools. We have no idea, right? So, I mean, we can try and open doors and put out paths and do that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have any control over that. So, so that's one thing. I agree that caps ultimately are what dictate the number of students in our school. And to your point, Sean, I do agree. It's like, that's the goal. We're deciding which path to get to that goal is what it's gonna come down to. I had a question about, we currently have an AR 5117 for the IDA. So that is not under a board purview, it's an AR.
Right.
So would we create a board policy?
For IDA?
Yes.
Yes.
Or would it stick under an AR and then that's just an organizational policy for staff to implement?
Well, we would have to adjust the AR.
So it would become a board policy versus an AR.
Right now, there are 2 different options for BP 5117.
Okay.
One is specific for IDAs, and the other is for school districts of choice.
Thank you.
And then of course, the how you do the board policy is the AR.
Right,
And so that
okay.
will come afterwards.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for clarifying that. So I think part of the thing I was surprised with all that staff feedback to hear how many really wanted to increase their class sizes. I always thought that teachers were very happy with their small class sizes, and it was interesting. And I'm sure, because we don't know what site said what comment, obviously, and I'm sure at the middle to high school, maybe they would like more robust class sizes than the primary. So, that was encouraging, and that was surprising to me. I think the other concern that I have always had is, it's this perception that we can do it all, and we can. And I really wish it was even in some of the comments. With all the resources we have, there's no reason we should not be letting everybody in through our. But we just saw the deferred maintenance that we have. We have negotiations and salary increases every year. We what can we do? And I know that I don't know if any of us. I would like to get as close as possible to that answer as we can. Like, what can we do? And to your point is, we had space for everybody, and we still have space for everybody. We didn't fulfill all those caps with
Correct.
what we did. So, I definitely want to maintain. I don't have a problem increasing as long as we're not sacrificing something else in the process. And that's crystal ball stuff. I realize that we can't all predict that, but does that make
It
it's
does.
just. And I'm also concerned with the part about the staff verifying employment.
Yes.
I mean, I would ask Erica directly on that, but I see that as almost a nonstop full-time job, because people shift jobs. To your point, we have seasonal work here. I mean, are we going to be all of a sudden having staff that's like policing everybody's employment? That seems
Right. The first part of the Ellen bill we control.
Yes.
It's our staff.
yeah. And I understand that because parents are up here. I just think that is creating a logistical workload that is not fair to ask, because I don't know. That's the way I feel about that as well.
I didn't comment on that one because I don't feel it's a problem that we have to solve unless it's in the grades that have a cap limit.
Right.
And again, we have space for everyone right now. Even for next year, we have space in every grade except maybe TK.
Yeah.
So,
And please weigh in on this. On the TK, I always felt that the belief that was coming from the district was to keep that class size on the smaller size.
Right. I think we had our cap at 12, and that class has 16 of
And
our own students enrolled.
Right.
Right.
Right. So we may, because of the new requirement, and then when kids turn in 8, that's always going to be a number that's going to be higher than what we're putting the cap at, right?
And we might consider adjusting the cap potentially if we do want to expand that for some whatever
Yeah.
for a reason.
But are we able to do that with the ratios that the states has regulated as
So-
with, as
so
far
it's-
as the ratio, as far as teacher to student?
It's
For
it's
TK?
2 adults, or it's per adult, not per teacher. So a teacher and an aide brings the ratio down to. So if you had 20, it'd be 10-1.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, okay. And I'll no, go ahead. You have
No, finish your thought.
I and before I said, I should have said this at the very beginning. I'm happy to increase enrollment. I really am, and it's similar to what Trustee Morris said. Is like we're trying to, but the students aren't coming our way. So that's we've got our hands tied on that one too, because we can't control that. Like what you said, we can't control what students are coming our way.
Is it appropriate to ask how many applications we've received so far?
I think you told me about 80.
So we have 80 applications
Currently.
already, and it's not even November 30th. Okay. And that's significantly more than last year, I think, is it not?
Let's see, we have the report.
I'm sorry, Erica. I don't.
No,
wanna
we
put
have
you on
the
spot.
we have the number in the report. 89 last year.
So it's less.
So
It's right.
A little bit less.
Less.
It's less.
We'll probably hit that number.
Okay.
I would suggest that the teachers union take a look at the enrollment study that we reviewed. It's in the agenda from April of '21. That was an extensive study that was done, looking at the total Napa County births from 1991 to 2021 and births in our St. Helena School District, to paint a picture of what we're looking at when it comes to all of the students that we can capture, which has declined greatly from 2006. So and also has declined greatly in our own county since 2001, when we had 102 births, and in 2021 we only had 54. So this significant decline, again, that would be a good place for people to start, to know that it's not just in our district. It is from the majority, except for Santa Rosa, the majority of the districts that we're trying to capture from. I am also in support of increasing class size, but I'm just, again, we can't wave a magic wand. I wish we could make it happen for the staff that wants that. But it's something that we're going to have to put our heads together and work together to increase enrollment, and even work with the city, work with the enrollment study that was done in April. The recommendation was more affordable housing. That was the only way, that was their number one way to increase more students in our district. So this goes beyond the conversation that we have at the dais. It has to be a community effort.
Sure.
I totally agree, and I know we've talked about this before, but we need to start ground level. We need, in my opinion, we need a presentation and go to the Realtor Association, because we don't want someone moving to town and the realtor saying, oh, we have an excellent Montessori school, you should enroll there, because that happens. Or, oh, we have an excellent da-da-da. I don't think people know enough what a great district we have, and we want them to be presenting all the options to new people moving. And I think that's something that should be high on priority list, is making a really good presentation and getting to a meeting of the board of realtors or something locally, so people are educated and can recommend us, because that's where we might get students, that are here going to be moving in the district, our kids in the district. So
Okay, so we can go home now. No. So now we're at the point where I think you have consensus that, well, it sounds like we have consensus, or at least a majority, that yes, believe that increasing enrollment
Yeah, I was going to summarize. What I'm hearing is there is consensus around.
I mean, basically, we're not talking about decreasing cap sizes.
Right.
Right.
So,
Yes, that's exactly.
yes,
So
we would like to keep
I will be
enrollment up.
crafting a recommended caps that I will bring to the board, and I will try to consider looking at capturing as many students as I possibly can within those caps.
Okay.
As a possible, trying to not send families away if we can keep them. If they want to be here and they're applying in the window and want to join us, as long as it doesn't take a grade level way over the top,
Sure.
that we're trying to capture as many of those families.
Okay, so that's the answer to the first question.
That's the answer to the first question.
Okay, and so now the second question is,
To
what
me,
you have to
well,
get to
and it's to me, it's kind of the real question there is, is it worth the funding we would be leaving on the table, 180,000, 2,000 plus per student, to have the ability to revoke a permit? Because that's really what it boils down to. There are other factors that we know play into it, but that's what we gain with IDA that we don't have with DOC.
And we also lose our ability to to take kids in if their district
Correct.
denies it. That's not
Right.
the case with DOC, correct?
With
Or is it?
DOC, they could only deny. It's very specific, narrow language around just the amount of students they're losing.
Okay.
Is that over a certain percentage of their ADA, they could put a stop.
Okay. When I look at rolling admissions, I just want to share with the board. I know that there were teachers, according to the staff feedback that we received, that are concerned about special ed caseloads. They're also concerned about an increase in difficult behavior. And from being a teacher for 20 years, my concern is when we have rolling admissions and we accept kids mid-year, some of those kids could possibly be bigger behavior issues than kids that we get at the beginning of the year for a number of reasons I don't need to go into. So I get a little concerned about the rolling admissions of students mid-year. Yes, some of them come in mid-year because they've moved to St. Helena and they are stellar students. But I do have questions about why a student would leave their school in the middle of the year and come to our school. So that is something to also consider when we're looking at IDA, when we think about rolling admissions.
But if they moved here, they're in district.
No, but I'm
Right.
saying yeah, but they could be at another school and then have to leave.
They
that
move to
school.
Calistoga or Napa and want to enroll here mid-year.
Yeah.
That's more of the question.
But a mid-year is not a typical move
Right.
for a child. Typically, a child will want to remain at their school for the whole year.
Correct.
My personal opinion.
Yeah. And I
From
think
experience.
that, well, a lot of these survey comments, okay, they're anecdotal, they're
They are.
opinions, of course. I guess to be responsible, I mean, we don't have any data for us that shows that, I mean, as somebody who sits on the discipline committee, it's not like that we can look at the data that way, but there's no data that points to DOC students
Causing
problem. I mean, we don't, and so there's no, there's no evidence to say going an IDA way is going to guarantee less discipline problem, behavior problems. I mean, maybe behavior problems could be still a residual effect from COVID, from these little kids coming into school and still learning to interact with their peer. I mean, I certainly am not an expert, but I mean, do you see what I'm saying about that? Like, I don't think that that's something that we can know for fact. It's just, and I do remember when we had IDAs, I do recall, I mean, it was, you can't be tardy more than X amount of times and you can't miss more days. You have to maintain a 2.0 or whatever. That was also a lot of record keeping for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming it was principal secretaries and the like. And that's a lot. I'll stop right there for a second. So.
Just one thing I want to clarify. I think I heard you say that you were going to be recommending cap sizes that would capture everyone who has applied. I think I heard you say that, and it made me pause because I know that last year we had the large class sizes and going
Fourth,
into
fifth,
fourth,
seventh.
into fifth, into seventh. If a lot of these students are in the going into fifth, going into sixth, and going into eighth, our previous RLS principal said that they didn't want to take on more. I just want to be mindful that if there are 20 that want to join in sixth grade, that might not be a good idea to have the capture all. I just, to say that.
Right. Okay. G. Marie.
Just a clarification. So with the IDA, what you were saying is if they're at Snow Elementary, their school could say, no, you can't go?
I not release them.
Wow.
Because
know that.
it to the point being that they're a revenue-based district, so every head in the seat is revenue. And so if they're all of a sudden have an exodus of 20 kids, whether it's just high school or that want to leave, those are dollars leaving their school.
And is it specifically to school? Can they interdistrict between elementary schools in Napa, or is each school?
Oh, I don't know.
That's
I wonder, just curious.
Most districts have an intra-district process.
Yeah.
Which allows them to go between schools.
Okay.
We obviously don't have that here.
Just curious.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, and of course, the conversation doesn't have to end. I mean,
No.
Are you as board members comfortable with giving direction to the superintendent on which path to get to those caps that will be presented? Are you guys ready to give that feeling direction? So,
Are you asking for DOC versus
Versus IDA?
IDA?
Yeah, sorry.
Because
Yeah.
that's
Can I just
different
make
than
that
caps.
more muddy for you?
No, I just want to make sure, because that's
Yeah,
different
Caps
than
that's
caps.
separately.
Okay.
Caps
Yeah.
are separate. So is your preference to stick with DOC or is your preference to switch to an IDA? I guess that's what I will ask you. Is that good?
Yeah,
enough
that's-
direction
I
to
mean,
start?
that's-
And then we'll see where we land.
So with DOC, we cannot write anything into the contract.
There's
Correct.
not
It,
right.
it's
Once they're in, they're in.
They're considered a resident once they're in.
and there's nothing that can be put in that about I hereby agree to abide by this discipline, da 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 da.
Because
Okay.
it's a state
Okay.
policy. You know, it's like it comes
So it
down
can't
to
be
the department
tailored
head.
or personalized.
Right.
Okay.
That's why an IDA is an agreement that's
Got it.
made between two parties,
Mm-hmm.
and
Got
that's
it.
where you can stipulate what the agreement is. To meet, you know, you have to maintain all 5 of these areas in order to stay a student of this. Do you feel like there's anything else you need us to know?
No, and just the only way a DOC student can be removed is through an expulsion. So that's pretty severe behavioral things.
And do we commit year by year, or are we committing to DOC for 5 years before we can change, or
So
how?
currently, the policy
like
will
DOC.
So DOC by the state does have an expiration date right now, unless it gets renewed. So I want to say it's 2028 is the last year of DOC. It would sunset at that point, and then at that point, if it doesn't renew, we would be switching back to an IDA process.
Well, for us, because this we said is we are committed through this year.
Yes.
Can we commit year to year?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes. As long as if we have until June to make a decision about the 25, 26. We just have to let the state know if we're DOC or not by that time.
And Jean Marie, as a matter of like logistics and protocol, so I mean, it can come back on the agenda, and then there would need to be 3 trustees that would need to say, we want this back on the agenda to review, and, you know, there has to be a majority to come back to discuss it, to vote on it again if you wanted to switch from DOC to IDA. Kind of thing. That's the protocol process. Did I say that
You
correctly?
did.
Okay.
Good job.
Ah, look at me. Okay.
You've been doing this before.
Okay, so with that, any final comments before we kind of get where the majority stands on which path we would like to
I have one more question.
Yes.
Has CHTA been asked if they prefer IDA or DOC?
Our Teachers Association? I think based on the feedback, it would lean more IDA because they want us to have the ability to revoke.
Okay. Again, I think what pushes me more towards DOC is that we don't have a lot of on-record behavioral problems with students who are DOC in our district. But I'm going to just repeat it, my major concern is that the district of residence can deny access to enroll, and because we are all suffering from low enrollment. So those are my thoughts.
I'm sure nobody, but have you heard of that happening a lot? Of people denying? I mean, I'm just curious, everybody in this room is, you know,
I mean,
you do hear about that, yes, Dr. Vang? Okay.
In other my experience in other districts, it varied. Even going back to Allenville Part 2, districts who do that, they use it as a way to get into a district. They're really not trying to revoke. They need the enrollment, right? You're trying to boost your enrollment. That's
Okay.
why you go down that path.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Vang, would you mind sharing, do you have anything to add about your experience with that?
I can say that in my prior experiences of being in other districts, it was clear that our district office, we didn't want to lose students because we were state-funded schools. We weren't funded off of property taxes like St. Helena. So when you release your students, you do lose funding because you are funded off of your ADA, your enrollment. So if you are losing even more students on top of your declining enrollment because they're going to neighboring districts because you're releasing them, that does impact your funding.
Okay. And it concerns me because we do capture a lot of students from Napa. Unified. Yeah, okay.
I think, go ahead.
Well, that just made me nervous that if we switch and we have a student that's in 5th grade, and then they could have it revoked, and then they
Right.
have to
Yeah,
leave
that's
us.
been here
Okay,
for a long time.
I didn't process that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
it's
I-
not
I-
just new students, it's
Right.
students who have been here since kindergarten.
Mr. Heller. Is this on?
So in my experience in a previous life when I was a high school principal, my district was an IDA district. And what we found is, I mean, it actually was a real positive to have such a mechanism to enroll students that allowed our programs to really grow and flourish. But I did kind of find the opposite in some ways with the IDA with other districts, is that at a certain point, when there was enough volume of parents that say, we want to go, at a certain point, it just becomes not worth the fight in the district. And you say, if that's what you really want to do, then we're going to sign it off. So it just depends, I think. So I wouldn't want to say it's one way or another, or something's going to happen, because it's hard to say. And if parents really want to take their students somewhere else, it's really difficult in an administrative position to say you have to stay here and to continue that conversation. So, you know, my favorite thing when I go to trainings for lawyers is they say it depends. And so here's a case where it depends.
Right.
So then that brings up a question. So our students that are DOC students now, if we go to IDA, we convert to IDA, do those district of choice students that now become IDAs, can their district then start revoking, saying, no, we want that student back now?
When I look through our policies, once DOC, they get to remain with us.
Well, that's my question,
Yeah.
but can the home district say,
that
I
when
don't
high
want them
school?
to stay there anymore? Because they're on IDA now.
We can look. I
Yeah.
don't have to see if they'd have to revert to an IDA to stay. I don't think they
That's
do,
the
but
part that really concerns me.
Okay.
Okay, so
That we need to
so
find
Yeah.
out
we need
more
a question
information
about
on.
that.
Okay.
And I do think obviously, when you can, I think the other part to Trustee Simon's initial question is, it would really be helpful to have a true understanding of the
Yes.
per pupil
Yeah.
funding.
Yeah.
You know, and a true.
You mean what's variable?
Yeah, help me understand
Not-
exactly
Well, I mean,
the
in
per
other
pupil
words,
you're
because,
looking for.
You know, I mean, well, to her point that we talked about at the beginning, it's like if we say, you know, the brochure says St. Helena spends $30,000 a year per student. Okay, but through all the multiple conversations that I know Jeannie and I have sat at this dais, as well as Trustee Simon, we've had DOC parents tell us at that podium that's not exactly what it costs per. So what I'm trying to get to is like, what is that cost? Because if we get rid of, you know, I mean, can we absorb $180,000 loss? Chances are we probably can, right? But it's, you know, I don't, you know, I'm fearful as well of having our primary school say we now have 20 kids in a class. We need paraeducators. We need that help in the class. Can we do that? Can we serve our students? And that's
We need to be responsible.
right.
With
So-
all of the costs.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay.
Okay, so that was that. And then I was going to say something else, but Sean, you were going to pop in on something else? No? Mm-mm. Okay. So let's just see what happens here. Go ahead.
As far as the ADA, no, I'm talking about ADA as kind of like deciding what we should do here. We were IDA. We were IDA at one time, so why don't we just use the policy that we had in the past and look at it, and then we can kind of start changing what we want to change of it and see if that's what if we want to move that direction or not.
what's
Well, it's
really
underneath-
important, though, is what years we had it. Because if we had it during a robust student enrollment Napa County years, that's a very different picture than having IDA during a time in a county where there's low enrollment and districts are trying
Don't
to
want to give it up.
Yeah, so that's a huge
That's a good
difference.
point. That's a good
Well, and I think you probably had IDA before Napa closed 4 schools. I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, they've closed schools since then.
it's probably like 2011. I'm trying to think that I can right around there.
Because if our current DOC kids become IDA kids and they are no longer allowed to go here, we're going to have parents at the podium, one after the other, so distraught, and I don't want that for our community. and teachers distraught that they're losing their students. So we need to be really careful about we need to find out, do our current DOC kids get to remain if we switch to IDA?
Yes.
Okay, I will do that homework.
Thank you.
So, I mean, so what I'm hearing from that, though, is that the board is then not comfortable with the solid direction because there's some unanswered puzzle pieces.
Correct.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
and I know that's frustrating to everybody in this room, but I can't ask people to give direction on a path if they don't feel they have all the information. I don't think that that's fair either.
And we have
Thank you,
time. It's
Lisa.
not like
We
we're
do.
up against
We
the
do.
wall as far as this.
Yeah.
We've
Right.
got time.
I mean,
The
now
first
that
question is answered,
Right.
and that impacts caps
now that
this
we've
year. So
had the crux of the conversation, a return to this topic could go much quicker.
True.
I would like to think, because you're going to come back with the three pieces, and
Yeah.
and that might just be like, well, okay, then that's clear. And remember that if we make one decision, one direction to go into, that we're not bound to that for 10 years.
Right.
We are welcome to repeat, to revisit it in
That's
the
true.
following year.
That's true.
I would have also, if, go to slide 4, I think you've already moved on, but it's the ratio, number of students and average class size.
Uh-huh.
I guess if I could maybe see at the 6 through 12 level, the class size at core classes.
core classes, okay.
Because I just feel like that's more representative of K through 5. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would agree with that, yes.
Me too.
Okay. I have what I need.
You do?
For now,
You feel
yeah.
comfortable? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
much.
everybody's time.
Thank you.
With that and allowing us to flesh that out. Okay. Does anybody need to take a few moments before we,
Can I?
Carolyn? We're going
I'm
to
gonna
take
take a
just
break. Yeah.
like a 7-minute
You got it.
comfort break. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We are reconvened at 8:48. We're going to jump right into 13A, which is the consideration and approval for St. Helena Unified 2023-24 Site Strategic Action Plans. Miss Veronica Miranda, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Some reading to do. And so these come to you every year for your review and for your approval. And they are a requirement for our school district. These are aligned to our LCAP. So as you looked at the 4 or 5 goals that the schools had, they are aligned. The purpose is to streamline the strategic LCAP goals. I like to call them baby LCAP, so we're moving in that direction so that everything is alignment in our district. There needs to be a needs assessment, so that is the challenge with receiving the state data, because as you know, we didn't receive that till late, I'm gonna say November, and so, I'm sorry, in October, and so the principals had some preliminary but not the official data to do that analysis. They're meeting with their stakeholders. They have goals in there to improve outcomes, including addressing the needs of student groups. They use evidence-based strategies and in proposed expenditures. So we would like your approval in moving forward.
Thank you. Is there anyone present or participating via Zoom who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I guess I worry, was there enough time?
Yes,
Considering
so,
the okay.
Yeah, so the
I just
so the
wasn't sure. I was
assessments,
like-
yes, so the results are, we receive those in April and May, but just the official results don't come to them. Now, there is, the truth is, there is a challenge with schools starting for that stakeholder input, but the sites knew, they knew the timeline since when they started school to review that and be able to meet with their teams, which is why you have signatures
Right.
of their school site councils as well. So, and these are ongoing, like everything else, that you approve them, but they're being looked at to make sure that there's progress on those metrics, and then when they come back next year, there's adjustments. So usually there isn't huge shifts in the LCAP, but there's adjustments to the action. And if there was a major revision, then they would need to come bring them back to you.
Okay.
I guess, yes, it was a lot of information, so I appreciated it. I was not, this is my first year reviewing and approving these, so there's a lot of pages. I think, I guess it's just like a personal thing, if there are major things that are really different that stand out, it would be, or things that we need to do differently, it would be great just to have those as a summary, because I don't know if I'm glossing over something because there's a lot, so.
So something more like an executive summary.
I don't know if there's something that's.
I actually talked to the superintendent about that. And I think, Veronica, if, as you work along on this, some type of an executive summary, or you tell, or sometimes previously what would happen is there'd be like a highlighted section, like this is what's changed. Anything that was highlighted in yellow, now, I mean, it usually was not significant. I know we're going into a creation of a new LCAP, so that could change, and I don't want to create, but even that just highlights like what trustees can look at from one year to a next, to Sean's point, so that we're not glossing over something. And I know it's important to Trustee Mora because she doesn't, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but I'm saying, you know, when you have to vote on something, for her, it's important to know what she is actually voting on, and not having an experience to know from year to year, just something like that. If that's something you could provide, it would probably be beneficial for board members.
Right. And I think just knowing myself that I do need to elevate more and not get into all the details, but they're there, so I feel like I have to. So I guess I'm asking for
So
a
you're
way,
you're
I'm
trying
asking
to-
for a way to make sure that I am up at a certain level, not digging into all the details, because I feel like I'm supposed to, so.
Mr.
I
Heller?
don't know what that right balance is, but.
I think by design of the LCAP, the reason why we have the following presentation is so the principals can provide those levels of details. So in a way, it is kind of like a good faith of, we have the LCAP, the principals are aligning with the LCAP and these goals. And then those presentations are the opportunities to ask deeper questions that I think you're looking for. So you can, as you read through them, it's great to save them. the high school will have questions, and then you'll have questions for RLS and so on. And that's your opportunity to kind of say, hey, here's my opportunity to examine this a little bit deeper. But I guess in a different way, not to create more work for staff, is just we ask that the approval for the plans, unless there's anything glaring,
Right.
kind of be done with our recommendations that they're aligned with the LCAP.
It's right. It's trusting in the
not want
process
more
and knowing.
work.
Correct.
Do not want to ask
Yes.
for more work.
No,
but
no,
I
exactly. I know that that's
just
not
want
what
to
you
be
were
mindful.
after.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
Okay.
And
Thank
that
you
makes
very
sense. So
much.
we're approving these for, even though 13B is a detailed walkthrough, so we do those across each of the school sites.
Yes, and it's, there'll be monthly presentations.
Perfect, thank you.
From the sites.
Thank you so much. Okay, is there a motion to approve the 2023-24 site action plans as presented?
I would love to make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, will you conduct a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Wolf? Aye. Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay. Now, 13B, presentation of the 2023-24 St. Helena High School Site Strategic Plan. Mr. Cinto, please. Thank you for being patient, Mr. Cinto.
Yeah. 10 o'clock, Mr. Heller, right? That's what I got. All my other funny openers. I was changing openers every presentation I was sitting back there, and I'm going to land on that one. All right. Thank you for front loading that. So tonight I'm going to share kind of a little more detail on our school plan for student achievement, and this is the structure of tonight, very basic. Process is actually probably the most important part. I mean, goals we'll go over, and then obviously a Q&A at the end where I can clarify any of my ambiguities and failing to explain it properly. So this is a slide on my OCD. I went and found every little image that would fit that little circle that matched the words below it. So anyway, this is, as much as I've been working at the high school for now 17 years in total, this is only the second time I've done it this way, and it works really, really well. So what you see there is kind of our process. So we always start with the purpose and success criteria. And for me, it's been lessons learned about making sure I engage all the staff in that work, because I can sit in my office all day long and create plans and draw up goals and this, that, and the other. But it doesn't mean anything until I engage the people that are actually saddled with creating a lot of that work as well. So the plan that you see tonight reflects the ambitions, the experiences, and the expertise of all of our faculty at the high school. And as Mr. Heller just said, it's fully aligned to the LCAP. It's also aligned to WASC, right? So to me, those are the non-negotiables, right? So when I work with staff and create the agenda items and all the materials that go into creating this school plan for student achievement, they have to understand what they have to do, right? We don't get to just willy-nilly write up goals that have no foundation in anything. So I'm not going to bore you with all the details in that, but that's part of my setup. That's what I do prior to the start of school during that first vertical articulation day. Task clarity, that's where I really work hard to provide all of those materials. We do a shared Google Drive where the LCAP, the WASC plan is, and also the previous, and Sean, this would be interesting, is the written report that we all provided at the close of last year, where we used traffic lighting to talk about things that were not accomplished, things were partially accomplished, and then things that we were successful on, because some of those things you want to carry over if they still have value, or sunset if they don't. And that's that. And then the last one is authoring the goals with the actions and how we intend to evaluate them. And all of that's a very collaborative process that we actually allow the staff to choose, which area do you want to focus on? Academic achievement, culture and climate, those kind of things, because we want it to be important to them. Go ahead, Erica. So I'm going to spend just a hair more time on goal number 1, just so you understand what I did. And so I've kind of truncated the LCAP goal. So I just call it academic growth. You obviously know that it's much more wordy than that. But that's not most important for this slide. And then I put the goal as we've written it, and then why. What is the need? So that's the foundation for each slide. Obviously, this is a big one for WASC. So I'll talk a little more about these actions in particular. So action 1, last year was the first year that we administered what's called the critical, or CCRA+, which is a critical thinking assessment. And that was our baseline year. So this year we're looking to both continue it, and we do it at the close of 10th grade and expand it into 11th grade. Because if we don't compare from year to year, what's the point of doing it outside of just having some data? And as much as that sounds like a very easy action, right? Oh yeah, fine, just test more kids. It's really quite involved. So obviously, all of those kids, I have to roster all of those kids. If those kids have 504s or IEPs, I have to put those accommodations in the rostering system. I have to work with the tech department to ensure the lockdown browser is installed on their devices. We have to train teachers. We have to notify students. We have to notify parents of these testing. So as much as it's a really short action, it's actually pretty expansive in terms of the work that it takes to get that done. So that's, I mean, all of these actions could have subsequent actions written below them, but for the sake of brevity, we don't do that. The second action that we intend to do to grow our academic growth is convene a pilot PLT, professional learning team, to analyze the data we had last year and data we gather this year to identify areas of strength and challenge, make recommendations or plans with other staff, assess those outcomes, and apply new knowledge. So that's that cycle of PLC. What do we want kids to know? How do we know what they know it? What do you do what they do, and what do you do what they don't? How do we make that recursive, ongoing with that new data set? Because we don't have common formative assessments at the high school, because I only have 2 teachers that teach the same thing outside of PE. So that's not information teachers can share among each other. We don't have grade level teams. So this is some data we can kind of try our PLC work with. So we look forward. We have last year's data, and it's pretty interesting already. But again, those students are juniors now. And the last one is convene a pilot PLT to develop curriculum instruction and assessment for our advisory program. And a lot of, I've already been asked, like, well, how is that a PLT? And it's not in its most basic function, but we're using those 4 guiding questions to be the foundation for our advisory program. So whether it's college and career readiness, whether it's social emotional learning, whether it's digital literacy, we're using those 4 questions to be the foundation. So what do we want students to know when it comes to college and career readiness? How do we know if they know it? So all of our advisory plans will have assessments built into them, which will then feed our counselors to identify which students don't know what it means to be A to G ready. So then they can provide more detailed counseling to the students that need it most. And then obviously we do a ton of things already for kids that have already, mastered those kind of skill sets or that knowledge with other ways. So while not true PLC fashion, we're using those 4 questions to infiltrate all levels of our work. Go ahead. So under the LCAP goal equity, there we're really working on our EL population. So we want to increase faculty communication and awareness of the EL population, the hurdles affecting their reclassification. So one of the challenges here, and we do it all the time with demographic indicators, is we talk about them as if they are a single population, right? But we know, particularly with EL students, that they're a very diverse population. Are they a newcomer? Are they a newcomer that has previous educational experience, or did they stop education in 3rd grade? Are they under 5 years? Are they over 5 years? Are they students that also have language needs as well as an IEP or a 504? It's a very diverse population, and they all have very different needs. So how do we increase communication among our staff so that we can better learn about our student population that are flowing through all classrooms at our high school? This is something that has, we talked at the data study session recently, our reclassification rate. This is something we began last year, where we started to convene EL student meetings to talk about what does it take to become reclassified and setting goals around that reclassification. We know that the effect size of goal setting among students is pretty powerful, right? If you set goals, you monitor your progress on those goals, and then you get feedback on those goals, you're more likely to achieve those goals. So we've already started doing that with our students because we're going to be celebrating reclassification here in January of our students, and we're trying to recoup some more because at the high school, reclassification criteria is based on semester grades in English class. That's one of the criteria, not just LPAC. So their semester grades in English will be an indicator of whether or not we can reclassify more students at that time. And lastly, we're convening an ad hoc access committee to formulate differentiated EL student support. So right now, I have other staff members who are well-versed in different things, some in the classified ranks, who can provide some additional support to some EL students who are maybe not using access period to its fullest. As much as it's instructional time and it's supposed to be where kids can be called into classrooms or do homework, whatever, we want to accelerate their language acquisition. And we have programs, we have people willing to do that kind of work. We just have to coordinate our efforts. So we've already had a few meetings among the ELD team. We've included general education teachers in there as well. Myself, counselors, our ELD coordinator, and it's something we aim to kick off pretty soon. Engagement. So this is one that we continue to roll over because those issues around engagement change all the time. So last year we collected, so this is about Student Congress. You heard Carolyn talk about it tonight. But we want to continue to use that data to, one, inform our students about those outcomes, because a lot of times kids just take the test and they don't know that anything happens with it. So again, it's coming full circle of using that as a basis for Student Congress's work. But also, this is a piece that we've left out in the past, is if we do something in student leadership with Student Congress, how do we show the outcomes to our students to show that we're making progress in those areas? So some of that might involve additional student surveys. Some of it might involve, reporting back among Student Congress attendees. But we want to make sure that they know, and this has been a common thing, what happens? Like, what happens after? Like, they know, they see things happen, but they don't know the outcome and did it have an effect on our student population. So that's something we're looking to grow. Also last year, so this is again a continuation that the staff felt it was important to keep doing, is myself and Mr. Fetters, we facilitated a number of demographically representative student panels to provide greater context, right? Surveys are great, and a lot of times we like to look at them as hard data, but really there's a lot of interpretation that goes into that. And if you don't understand the context around the data, then you really don't understand the data. So we found that data really powerful, or that anecdotal evidence really powerful. I still have all of it. And we're going to use that to feed our advisory program as we develop it, so that we can show we're being responsive. We know we have growth areas in terms of academic motivation, and student connectedness is pretty strong, but it's something that we've seen a gradual decline with. So what can we do as the educators to grow that within a new advisory program? So we aim to use it to feed our advisory program, knowing that it's going to catch a lot of loose ends at the high school. And lastly, in this area, is explore training students as mental health ambassadors, equipping them with the baseline skills and knowledge to support peers at times of distress. And this one's funny. It's, as much as I think I'm the coolest guy at St. Helena High School, I recognize that I do not have all the social capital that I need. Mr. Heller and I last year, or maybe it was the year before, I forget, we talked to student leadership about why they do not access services. And it's because they don't know the adults, or there's the stigma attached to mental health services in envisioning the potential of the wellness center and those kind of things. When we toured wellness centers in the past, a lot of those providers did outward facing activities. It wasn't that they were just holding up in their offices serving students all the time. They spent a lot of time out during lunch, during break, on Fridays, to make sure that the students knew who they were. So knowing that that is the ambition of the high school, how can we utilize students to partner with those to promote it, to make it more acceptable to secure services when they're needed? Culturally responsive. So again, this is about healthy practices. Again, I didn't put all the language of the LCAP goal. So as we move forward with the Wellness Center, this is one we're going to really lean on students, because if it's for them, we should solicit their input on what it looks like and how it works. Right now, we have an operational cafeteria downstairs. Is that something that they is there ways that we can change the physical space to make it more welcoming? Is there things we could do in design and structure to make sure that it's not an obstacle to services, but it invites students? Secondly, implement a pre and post wellness center visit survey. So this is something, the high school is part of the CalHope grant, and we hold monthly meetings with, I forget who they're affiliated with, but one of them is Jill Barnes down in Napa County Office of Ed. But this is actually, we had a meeting yesterday and we talked about, I asked them if they could find samples of surveys to students, because we want to know that our services are meeting the needs, right? So if students eventually start showing up to the wellness center looking for support and guidance, how can we ascertain the reasons why we're there? And then after they go there and receive services, how do we know if those services are working? And that's something we don't currently do. I mean, we provide services to students. We counselors and mental health professionals, they talk if kids are making progress, but it's not as immediate as what it could be if it becomes more frequent, where students are filtering through there frequently. And then actually, I misspoke. The last one was create a wellness center ambassador committee with student leadership to recruit student participation. So we're kind of a lot of similarities among the two in terms of using our students to promote the services that we eventually hope, that we are providing now, in terms of our mobile health clinic, the dental van, as well as the different Claro and Clara, all those mental health services. The students have done a good job of promoting them amongst their peers, but we want it to be more, I guess, in the face. And then lastly, this is a goal around most, I believe, and Veronica, you could correct me if I'm wrong, most schools only have 4 goals. We have to have a 5th goal because we have been identified as a ATSI. I don't really remember what that means. Targeted systematic intervention or support. And this is based on our suspension rate of EL students as being higher than it should be. But this is where I will tell you up front that it is because of our small numbers that percentage is magnified. A great example of that is the time we had the highest expulsion rate in Napa County. 1 kid. There was nowhere we could go but lower. So this is where our numbers do hurt us when it comes to proportionality and percentages and those kind of things. So all of these actions here, we actually don't have a choice. These are required by the California Department of Ed. And this is something, action 1, it's something Mr. Fetters and I do every year. We look at our student population, we look at ethnicity, we look at special ed, we look at EL, and we look at those percentages every single year. So this is data we have readily available already. Implement evidence-based practices, proactive interventions. So this is something you're all aware as part of our, particularly last year when we worked on our discipline matrix and progressive discipline policy, a lot of this we have in place. Is there more we can do? The state has a treasure trove of things that they recommend. I met with my my ELAC rep the other day, and this is something that we're going to work with them at our next ELAC meeting to educate parents around some of those disciplinary issues that students were being infraction for. So we're making progress there already. And the last one is identify resource inequities to be addressed through implementation of this. Do we need to divert more dollars to meeting the needs of that student population when it comes to disciplinary infractions? So I can't answer that question yet, but that's a process we will need to go through. And again, we do not have a choice on any of those 3 actions. 7 minutes. Yeah.
Wow. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay, trustees, questions, comments?
Sorry, on the goal 5, yes, you clarified a lot. So the goal actually says that it's improve EL student outcomes with regard to suspension rate, but you mentioned expulsion. So I just wanted to make sure are we on a state radar because of suspensions?
Suspension,
for EL?
yeah. I was just using
Okay.
that as an example
Okay,
of
yeah,
how
yeah.
our numbers
Thank you.
impact percentages.
Okay, but it is the state it's specific to EL, ever EL, or
ELs in general.
EL,
Yeah.
okay, and suspension rate. Thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think like every single high school in California is ATSI. I'm pretty sure. It's not, there's a really large number of schools that are additional targeted support and improvement. There it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Trustee, trustees, or should I go? Or is anybody else? I remember last year we were at CSBA, and at one of the, I think it was like a luncheon event. We had a presentation on mental health ambassadors from the students, and I think it's a great. I mean, we heard from 3 or 4 students on that program, specifically, and they were saying what a positive presence it turned for their campus to be able to do peer-to-peer, like this is where you go, this is who you should talk to, you're not, and I tried to look up the name of that. I know that you can certainly,
Find it.
find it as well, but I have to go back and find the paperwork from but it was successful, which is what I'm trying to say, and I was chopping my words there, but.
I think they were with Cal Hope.
Was that
That was, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was great. It was really it was a really informative thing. I guess so. My questions and comments around Gold 4. So I know that you probably heard last month the board is concerned with the wellness center falling through the cracks, and so is this something the high school? I mean, do we know, is the high school going to own this? I mean, is this what you're envisioning? I mean, we have to bring on higher level staff, but this makes it sound like this is going to be a high school wellness center, which I realize it's on this campus, but we're talking about utilizing the space downstairs, and I was just kind of curious about what this kind of really fleshes out to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think at some point you just have to start somewhere, right? You think about the number of services that we've acquired, even just recently, right? Like the mobile, what is it? Not Ole. Is it Ole Health? Yeah, Ole Health. Actively every other access period, and we've changed location for them because they pull up, right? Some of the initial conversations we had around the wellness center, we were looking at modifying spaces, this, that, and the other. And as we started to grow our understanding of who our partners would be and what they might offer, I mean, it starts to morph over time. But I mean, I would say, yes, I mean, it's going to serve the high school primarily, but that doesn't mean in perpetuity, right? I think the initial motivations, and you recall, were what can we do to create, I think it was called community school, right? And there was a big push for that. But you don't just jump into creating a community school without really massive levels of involvement. So I think once it gets kicked off the ground, then you look at next steps. How do we better serve our community beyond serving the high school and the wellness center? And I mean, even now, the mobile health clinic is here beyond school hours. The dental health clinic already serves people, not high school students. So as we start to have a greater understanding of all the services that are provided, and we even had a conversation today, is can we fold a Valley Family Center, given the fact that they're underutilized in terms of the services they provide. Again, I'm not saying we're doing that, but that's something, those are active conversations that we're having to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts that are not being met or that are being met elsewhere. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Good. No, you're good.
Great.
Okay, I think Mr. Cinto.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Well, I'm sorry you have to listen to me again.
No, we're perfectly fine to have you stay right where you are. So thank you for that. That was great information to have. So appreciate having that. Now we're going to move on to 13C, is the consideration of approval for the St. Helena High School A through G Completion Improvement Plan. Please, Mr. Cinto.
All right. So this one will be pretty quick. In the first section is just a brief list, and this is really more about your questions than it is about me presenting, but all of those things are detailed in the last section, which I actually think I did a semi-poor job of addressing when I reread the question. But so those are the 4 actions. It's a $72,000 A to G grant, and about $53,000 of that is generated towards or geared towards services, and the other 12,000 is for learning loss mitigation. So they have to be used specifically. So obviously I went to the California Ed Code to make sure that all the expenses were allowable in terms of what we wanted to do. So in that first section there, that's just a brief list of the 4 things that we aim to do or facilitate. The second question is, and again, this is, we had to provide some, I'm sorry, what is it? Is that the data one? No, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, my eyes have gotten, I'm no longer the young guy anymore. These are progressives. So the second question is about access to A to G courses. And this is something the district should really be proud of, because access is not the issue. Outcomes within those courses is the issue, right? So, which is not wholly under our control. But when you look at our graduation requirements, when you look at what we offer our students, and the fact, I mean, I look back on our master's schedule when I came back here in 2009, and the number of non-A to G courses that we had here at this high school compared to the fact that we don't have barely any, and we have 14 college courses on this campus right now. It's a huge transformation in terms of our expectations and our support for students to achieve in those courses, but that doesn't always happen. So again, access is not the issue, outcomes is the issue, because you have to have above a C, or C or above, in looking at subsequent course taking behavior. If you don't remediate that C, you're eliminated from A to G. So at any point in time, if you got a D in English 9, either semester, you're not considered A to G. So there you have the number of students who fit that time frame, who are all seniors now, but that number, 58 students, does not capture kids that have remediated those deficiencies or retaken that course. So again, I had to write it specifically to that 2021 timeline, because all of those, it's our seniors who were freshmen back then.
Okay.
So not a very useful number, but just so you know. And then this is where I think I did, and my apologies, I did a, I'm sorry, which one's this one? Okay, there, yeah. This is where I did a poor job, but I went back and fixed it. So it says, how does this supplement the LCAP? And I just detailed the expenditures even further, but I can tell you, at least for the first action of subsidizing AP testing fees, which we already do, but that's money I can divert elsewhere. So I've already looked at every single kid in an AP class and determine if they meet that unduplicated pupil, and that would be about a $5,000 that I could allocate there and reuse those dollars elsewhere. So in the LCAP, there's, I could tell you the page number, but in terms of there's mentions of increasing enrollment in AP, there's maintaining enrollment within open access to AP classes. So to me, that fits, it supplements the LCAP that way. For the second goal, there's 2 or 3 mentions on identified needs of building a new advisory period. So, and I guess I should have covered that as well. So we're looking to have a staff member basically build a course from scratch for our advisory program. Our teachers were ready to start advisory this year, and we recognize that we didn't want to fail, right? And knowing what we're trying to accomplish in advisory, and having curriculum, instruction, and assessment all done. Because mind you, every single staff member is going to be doing this, and it's going to be by grade level. So in building in digital literacy, building in social emotional learning, building in college and career readiness, I mean, you want to do that well. We don't want to start the school year and then not have it develop. So we're going to look to build a Schoology page with all of those things. That way, when we come back, we can use that time to train people on how to facilitate it, but they're all very familiar with how Schoology works. But basically, it will be press a button and go. So we want it to work out well, which is why there's such a cost attributed to that, because we're asking, that's a lot of work to build curriculum, instruction, and assessment for every single teacher at the school. The third one, this one is a little different. So obviously I did not develop this plan in isolation, but what we'd also like to use the dollars to do is fund a basically a residency program for unduplicated pupils who identify incoming juniors. There's a number of them out there. But when you think about a nonlinear approach to what motivates a student to remediate coursework, sometimes it's nothing the school does, right? A lot of families take their kids to go travel and see schools and do things when they're starting to choose schools, but we know visiting schools can have a very big impact on students. And there's a number of these camps. Some are at Sonoma State. We've identified one at University of California Pacific in Stockton. And you look at what motivates a student to do more. And I would say, you know, if we identify 10 students, that's a 12, and let's say all of those students come back jazzed and they're like, yeah, I'm going to fix that D, I got an English 9. I mean, you could essentially increase your A to G rate by 12%, right? 10 kids is about 12% at the high school, which, you know, when you look at the outcomes of that data, oh, wow, 12%. Like that's a big jump, and what that might mean for those families. And we realize, like, there's only so much we could do here that's going to have that kind of impact if we know access is not the issue. You know, the latter one around learning loss, the last one around learning loss mitigation is, you know, we've done, even this last year, we had success with remediating English. We had about 9 kids who improved their grades. But sometimes it's not always a class that's going to do it. We do intend to, in bullet number 4 there, expand APEX coursework to non-English and social studies classes, because sometimes those can be the barriers, but it costs money to do that. In APEX, APEX, we have a blanket contract with APEX now, which allows a teacher to facilitate. We've submitted all our coursework, so we don't pay extra for those classes because our teacher could do the work associated with that. But when it comes to science and math and those kind of things, you have to pay a teacher to grade things and do all that. And it's much cheaper to go that way. So we look to expand those offerings, but that would be purely independent, so outside of what we do here at the school. But it fits, I mean, the number 3, it fits, there's 25 mentions of supports and services within the LCAP, and then APEX is mentioned, you know, multiple times in the LCAP as well. So it is supplementing what we state in the LCAP, but it is definitely a different approach.
Thank you, Mr. Cinto.
Yeah.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I have one. Can you explain the residency? I kind of got lost there. So you would send students to a program. How long of a program is that?
Yeah, so they're different. Some are 1 week, some are 2 weeks, but basically, you know, there's a lot of different ones. We went down a little rabbit hole, but I mean, the one at UOP, that seems to be the one that's rising to the top of what we've looked at thus far. They tend to be discipline specific, so, you know, something in the arts or something in the sciences, but it's getting kids on a college campus, living in a college dorm with other kids. But it's, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, we have kids in Avid, and there's certain expectations around Avid and the community around Avid. It's, you know, we send kids to Boys and Girls State. Those kind of experiences are very growth producing for kids. Sure. And, you know, we talk about St. Helena being a bubble, and going outside of that bubble and being somewhere else. I mean, that's a pretty enriching experience. And if that can improve the likelihood that that kid is more likely to pursue high level coursework and do all those things that they need to be A to G and eligible, we think it's worth a shot.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you 100%.
All right.
Will there be an application process? Or what if you have 20 kids that want to go or something?
Yeah, we haven't, you know, we obviously wanted to get your blessing tonight, but we also want to identify, again, this is really centered around unduplicated pupils. So pupils that do not have the means to do that kind of thing. So we're not going to just open it up. We're going to look to identify students, and you don't want to, I mean, the real movement is in the fence sitter kid. Like, if you have way too much to recoup, then the likelihood of you recouping all of those deficiencies is less. So we're going to look at students who have greater potential and focusing on going into your junior year because you still have 2 years left. Yeah.
Is it a 1 week residency program?
So they're different. Yeah,
They're all different.
Some
Okay.
are 1, some are 2.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I had the same exact question. So, okay, trustees, any? I had a question about the advisory coordinator, because obviously this is like a grant you're getting. So we have this person for 1 year under that stipend, and then what happens?
So then now mind you, it's 1 year to develop 4 years of a curriculum.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's grade level, it's 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So obviously, it's a lot of work because
Sure.
they're going to have to be working with other people to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so so I think I'm a little bit clearer now. That person is creating the curriculum for the 4 years, and then it's not like they actually are. I was taking maybe it a little bit too literally that this was a person that was meeting.
Oh no.
Okay.
No. I mean, it's basically to set it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But after it's done, then individual parties can augment it over time.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That helps me understand that. Okay.
And the person that you're thinking, the person that would have this job is someone that is already as a teaching professional already.
Yeah,
or-
yeah.
Okay.
And obviously they have to be versed in a lot of different things, right? Like I'm not going to let somebody who doesn't have experience in college career guidance or counseling do that kind of work. So whether or not we have to, post it or whatever,
Okay.
that's something you have to have a skill set to be able to do that effectively.
Okay, and so, and I'm not concerned about that, but as far as just the workload, as far as their workload during their, teaching and then doing this on top of it, that would be my only concerned thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. And that's
Yeah.
why it comes at a hefty price tag.
So I just have a quick, I'm sorry, didn't
No,
you?
you're good.
So I'm not clear on this. So the number of students, 58, so these are the students that were like in the pandemic of 2021, that's primarily the reason, okay.
Yeah, so it could have been either first or second semester. So there might be some duplicates in there as well.
Okay. So this is what this grant is going to be serving, is these students right here.
No, that was just, we had to provide that data point. But, I mean, there's not a lot you could do to recoup at this point in time. I mean, we're halfway through. They're all seniors now.
Okay,
So, yeah,
okay,
no,
okay,
it's
that's what I
intended to serve the whole
misunderstood.
school,
Okay.
but that was the data point we had to provide. And we've done things in the past. So again, summer school last year, even though it wasn't funded by the A to G grant, that's something the district funded in terms of, we did a recoup English course, 9 through 11. So we had 9 kids participate, 8 of them fulfilled and became A to G eligible in their area of deficiency, which that time was English. We've also done other things to allow grade replacement in integrated math 1, right? So we've done other things that have kind of supported this to make more kids A to G eligible.
Okay.
But now we're looking to do a little more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just an example of something, and so it could be a 10th grader who has to, okay, got it.
Yeah, I mean,
got
the
it,
sooner
okay.
you can do it, the better.
Right, and this grant is just to help with that?
Yeah.
Okay, got it, that sounds great. And usually, how many students are not A to G eligible, or don't have the?
It's a tricky one. I'm trying to think, what were our percentages? I think it was like 48 A to G. I forget. I don't want to.
Okay, but I'm putting you on the spot for that, so I understand. I'm sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no, it's okay. It's okay.
Thank you.
I'm okay saying I don't know.
Any other questions?
So I like all of it, sorry. Just the program coordinator, so you're saying that they're going to create content, and who's delivering it and when? Is it during normal class time?
No, so
That's
good,
what
great
I'm
question.
missing.
Great. So this is for implementation next year.
Right, I know,
So-
but like,
Yeah,
when
so
would a
we're
teacher
creating.
say-
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
when would a student access this curriculum?
So
next
we are looking at bell schedules right now. So RLS has family group, right? So this is something that all last year we worked on. If we had an advisory, what would it contain? When would we do it? How long would it be? We spent an entire year talking about just the construct, right? And everybody's in, gung-ho. Like they wanted us to start this year, but we knew we weren't ready. So this year is really building it out for implementation next year.
Right.
So it will be a course every single teacher has.
Okay.
30 minutes. But our schedule's going to change.
The teachers have it, not the students.
The teachers will be delivering it to
Teachers
the, it's going to be
deliver it,
another
okay.
class.
Okay,
basically.
because I know some of the problems have been the college and career readiness happens during access. Well, that's the time the students are also supposed to get help.
Oh, yeah.
Which, right, so I remember this
What happens during
conversation.
access? They push in, I was Mr.
Right.
Blassingame apologize for not being in my presentation, but like the counselors, and that's a hard part with counseling, right? So
Yeah.
they push into English classes, they
Yeah.
push into history classes, because those are the only grade level classes we have. So obviously we're compromising academic time there.
Right.
They do brown bag lunches, they do stuff during access period, they do, presentations at nighttime, whatever. We've just come to a point where we have to provide direct instruction in some of these areas, because we can't keep
It's the add it
asking,
for all.
we can't keep asking academic subjects to do things that are outside of their academic subject. It doesn't, at some point you have to peel off some layers and get back to the basics. So.
Yeah. And you might have students that create a new connection with a teacher that's might not have happened before, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Anything else, trustees? Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so there is that was that. We're going to have a motion to approve the St. Helena High School A through G Completion Improvement Plan as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Oh, aye. Thank you. Aye. Motion carried. Sorry. Gosh, totally. Whew, for a moment. I know. I was like, okay, now Mr. Heller is going to bring it home. That's. Oh, not yet.
No.
Oh, not yet. No, we have one more. Sorry. We have the safety plan. Consideration of approval of the revised 23-24 district safety plan. Veronica Miranda, please.
Yes, so you don't have copies, we don't put these copies of the safety plans, for, of course, obvious reasons. So I have copies of these, but they've also been sitting at all of the school sites, so if parents or community wanted to take a look at those, they could. These come to the board every year. By March, they're supposed to come to you. And I didn't do the highlight of the changes, but I can tell you that the adjustments is when the table of contents are all the same for all the schools. They have the requirements there. And really the adjustments come around if there's personnel that changes or if there's new law or some adjustments with perhaps the matrix and discipline. So all of those pieces get updated and the committee takes a look at that. I do want to do a shout out and thank Mr. Fetters because he's really helped with this and he really has been guiding our principals. Mr. Ryan specifically just being new, not a new principal, but new. So he has been just a great wealth of resource in helping us with these pieces. So I ask for your approval for these plans.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions on this agenda item?
I was just trying to look back at my notes of when this presentation for school site safety is for the parents. Is that
The
what's happening?
27th, the Monday
That-
after the break.
What they're getting a recap on, what we're approving today, or is this different?
I'm going to say this is an addition, it would be additional deeper layer.
Yeah,
Okay.
that presentation is not about these plans per se. It's really about just how we respond in like active shooter situations and things
That's
like
the
that.
how, the other one is,
Yeah, and this is really
Much more
for
high
our
level.
community, and it could be open to the whole community because
Sure.
the police is doing it with us.
okay.
And I had a question, and I asked it, but it didn't get answered earlier, is on one of them, John Sorensen's signature is missing. And I don't know if that makes it an incomplete document or not.
No, so I checked with Mr. Fetters as far as they have the line there for, I believe it's the fire marshal, right? And so if he's present and he's available, he's part of the committee, he will sign off, but it is not a requirement
Okay,
piece.
great. Just wanted to make sure that we were crossing T's and dotting I's, so thank you. Okay, any other questions, trustees? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the revised 2023-24 district safety plan as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Madrigal, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carried. Okay, now 14A, under Human Resources. Consideration of approval for the 2023-24 certificated seniority list. Mr. Heller, please.
All right, bringing it home. This action item establishes an annual ranking of order for certificated employees for seniority in the district based on their date of hire. In the event we're presented with the task of layoffs, this list determines which employees of the least seniority would be considered first in the process. This is also tied, the question came up last year a little bit in January regarding the skipping and bumping and tie-breaking criteria. So that further will define this process in January. But for tonight, we just ask that you approve the seniority list, which has been reviewed and approved by SHTA as well.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
No, there's no public comment.
Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 2023-24 certificated seniority list as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carried. 14B, consideration of approval for the 2023-2024 seniority list for CSEA employees, classified management, and confidential personnel. Mr. Heller, please.
Yes, and so under the same premise as the previous item, this list establishes the ranking order for classified, not only classified, but classified management and confidential as well. So it's been presented to Chapter 287 CSEA for their review and approval, and it stands in front of you tonight for final approval.
Thank you. Any public comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 2023-2024 seniority list for CSEA, classified management, and confidential employees as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Sean's got the second. Okay, yes, Miss Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, future agenda items. You'll see there we've got quite a bit coming up here, board. I'm hesitant to ask if trustees have any subjects for future agenda items, but I say that in jest. Of course, if there's something you'd like to discuss, please feel free to do so at this time. Yes.
I just wanted to double check, since I will be at a portion of the December meeting, my Adopt a School report will be a written report.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
So I know for December 14th, that's going to be somewhat truncated with, at some point, only 3 trustees being here. My question is, DOC caps would traditionally come to that session. Do we want to delay that to January where all 5 of you are sitting?
Absolutely. I don't want to have that discussion without
figured.
5 board members.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, that's my,
No, thank you.
yeah,
I'm-
my
Since
some
Sorry.
people won't be here at all.
Oh, okay.
So by the time that would probably
Understood.
come on the agenda,
Then yes.
there would be 3 of us.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to so quickly speak for
Yeah.
all 5 of us, but I guess I felt.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Dress rehearsal.
Okay. So on that, is everybody comfortable with our upcoming future meetings and whatnot? Something else?
Yes, I'm wondering, since I'll be at a portion of that meeting, can we do approval of the deferred maintenance projects earlier? Thank you, Erica.
I think we'll be doing agenda prep, and I know that she's very cognizant of how to put the things
With
out,
the-
knowing that we're going to be short.
I really appreciate that.
absolutely.
Thank you for making
Absolutely.
accommodations.
That's great.
Thanks.
Okay. I think with that, we'll leave it be. Everybody comfortable? Oh, no. What would you like to say?
Making a motion to.
Oh, no. I thought you were going to add something for an agenda.
No,
you're okay.
no, I'm
Oh,
good.
I see you
Thank
getting
you.
a little punchy here at the end there. Okay. So, with that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Miss Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting ended 9:42. Thank you, everybody,
Thank you.
for being with us this
Thank you.
evening.
Thank